Clang! With the crash of the iron tray hitting the table, a small piece of smashed pudding leaped up, nimbly gliding over the mound of braised beef, and with a splash, it plopped into the soup bowl by Leon's hand. Oh! Leon, who was happily eating, paused and looked up in surprise, only to see a familiar face full of anger on the empty seat opposite him. That spoiled woman police officer from this morning? No. What's your problem? There are so many empty seats. Why sit across from me, your enemy? Are we that close? Miss Isha, giving consideration to her identity as a secret police officer and not wanting trouble, Leon set down his fork and politely gestured to an empty seat not far away, saying as politely as possible, I prefer to eat lunch alone, so if it's convenient, could you go over there?
No.
Staring angrily at this jerk who fooled her in the morning and now snatched her lunch, the policewoman glared at Leon, took off her scarf and placed it on the table, gritting her teeth and hissing, I am sitting here today. If you don't like it, you can leave. Fine. Then I'll find another spot. And I hope you'll keep your promise to stay here and not move. With the policewoman's slightly stunned expression, Leon forced a smile and carried his tray leisurely to the next seat, casually picking up a tender piece of stewed beef shoulder and happily stuffing it into his mouth. It was really great. Some people in the police department were annoying, but the cafeteria's cooking was truly top-notch, especially this homemade braised beef. Though it's not some grand luxury dish, the chef certainly put in significant effort. The beef was clearly seared briefly before being stewed, preserving its tender texture very well. The ratio of the broth was evidently well calculated to be just right, neither oversaturating and dampening the flavor nor leaving it underseasoned. Leon only had to press lightly with his teeth, and the specially seasoned broth with white pepper, bay leaves, and cloves was squeezed out from the tender beef fibers. The fragrant and slightly spicy broth, along with the tender and smooth texture of the beef, almost instantly conquered his tongue. In the deep autumn when your fingers were chilled by the wind, having such a morsel of tender, slightly spicy veal when starving was indeed a great happiness for a busy worker. Damn it! I can't stand it anymore. Looking up at Leon's enraptured expression and the delicious broth at the corner of his mouth, then down at her own tray with pork cutlet now cold due to sitting too long, the unlucky policewoman's eyes reddened. I have never seen such an arrogant rebel. After sneaking into the police department relying on luck, not hiding cautiously was one thing, but actually brazenly enjoying the department's cafeteria, and right in front of me, savoring the braised beef left specially for me. You are just... damn. And you even smack your lips. Clang! The sound of the iron tray hitting the table rang out again. Having had enough of Leon's joyous eating, the policewoman directly broke her earlier promise to sit here, carrying her tray back to sit opposite Leon, glaring at him fiercely. Decided, she must use the most malicious expression of her life, ominously saying to him, You don't think no one knows what you did 4 days ago, do you? According to the director's words, we can't arrest this bastard nor intend to mislead him with false information. And this lead has been completely abandoned, so we might as well use this information to scare him. Not only could it warn him to restrain his actions, but it could also let him know that we, the secret police, aren't just sitting around. Hopefully, it would make him realize he was exposed and get lost. You! Just as the teary-eyed policewoman slapped the table, ready to risk violating the Secret Investigation Bureau's discipline and make life difficult for this damn jerk. She saw the jerk across the table glare back first, coldly questioning, Why are you wasting food? What? Seeing the pudding smashed and scattered all over the table, Leon, who had been living on less than 2 copper wheels for daily meals for the past 3 years and had even picked bread crusts out of trash cans when starving, couldn't help but feel his mood plummet. As he wrinkled his brow and looked up, ready to say something about not wasting food, like those things you spilled on the table at least 50% of the people in the capital city wouldn't even get to eat, he glimpsed the clothes the policewoman was wearing. According to the kingdom's police department regulations, except for officers on duty or in service positions, wearing uniforms isn't required. Although the policewoman's casual outfit was plain, the intricate embroidery at the collar, and the expensive-looking fabric that resisted wrinkles no matter how she moved revealed its high value at a glance. So, what's the point of saying these things to her? After lowering his head again to look at his own old coat, checking the thin patches around the elbows and the worn cotton core exposed by the collar lining, Leon couldn't help but chuckle self-deprecatingly, completely giving up on any intention of reasoning with her, and after giving her a cold glance, he lowered his head again. Forget it. Pretend I didn't say anything. Watching Leon lower his head again to eat and not look at her at all, the female police officer, who had been full of anger just moments ago, now sat in her seat, bewildered. Due to long-term malnutrition, Leon had always been quite thin, with hardly any flesh on his cheeks, making his eyes appear exceptionally large and full of expression. Just as the red-haired director had said, even though Leon was not very talkative and rarely showed emotion, with just one look, you could tell he was actually a person with a rich inner emotional life, all thanks to those eyes that seemed like they could speak. At that moment, the female police officer was struck hard by the cold indifference in Leon's eyes that seemed to push people 1,000 miles away. It wasn't aversion, disdain, anger, or hatred. It was the purest cold indifference, untainted by any other emotion. Summer insects cannot discuss ice. Although she would have never heard this saying, at this moment, the female police officer surprisingly read a similar meaning in Leon's glance. It was an ultimate indifference born from the clear recognition of the vast difference between them, to the extent that he was simply too lazy to communicate. He was, not knowing how to describe that look, after snapping out of her daze, feeling the stares from around and hearing whispers in the restaurant, watching Leon eat his stewed beef with indifference. The female police officer's face turned red in an instant. "You bastard! I'll make you eat!" With a harsh scraping sound, she stood up suddenly, then grabbed one side of her tray and with a loud clatter dumped everything onto Leon's tray. With everyone's astonished gaze upon her, she bit her lip, lowered her head, and ran out of the cafeteria. "Oh? What the? Are you crazy?" Unaware of the significant psychological impact his glance had caused the proud female police officer, Leon's anger flared up as he looked at the messy tray. Though the female police officer's mind didn't work well, her physical ability was undisputable. By the time Leon snapped out of his daze, ready to chase after her, she was already long gone, having run off on her long legs. Ugh. Don't engage with fools. Don't engage with fools. Don't engage with fools. After glancing at the unfinished food on his plate, Leon repeatedly chanted to himself before sitting back down with a darkened face and resumed eating, even picking up and tasting a piece of rice pudding that had fallen on the table. I have to say, this dessert was very popular among the female officers and tasted really good, obviously made with care. Mixing eggs, milk, sugar, raisins, and other ingredients into rice until it became a pudding, it required skill to make. Even though it was a bit cold now, the pudding still melted in his mouth, and its sweet fragrance evoked a feeling of comfort as it traveled to his heart. After tasting the fried pork cutlet and apple pie, which were also very good, Leon finally pushed down his anger, nodded satisfied that the meal had pleased him. Not bad, he thought. Even though that policewoman is somewhat crazy, her taste in food isn't bad. I should order this next time. Caught up in his meal, Leon failed to notice the hand-knitted scarf with Isha embroidered on it left on the table where they had faced off. As for the female police officer who had dumped her tray and ran off, she was now back at the cafeteria's entrance, staring dazedly as Leon picked up the pudding from the table, then, with care, used his utensils to finish eating every bit of the mixed-up mess in his tray. Hiccup! Running all the way home with the cat food and pet toys he bought from the department store, Leon finally arrived home before 3 p.m. As someone who didn't have a large appetite, Leon first encountered the canteen lady's big serving spoon, followed by the idiotic police officer's double portion that truly tested his willpower as he forced down this painful yet satisfying meal. After sitting down to rest, clutching his distended belly, Leon checked the time. Seeing he had until 3:30, he relaxed a little, then got up with difficulty to get things ready. According to information from Materialism, A witch's cat would come knocking at 3:30. While it didn't seem dangerous, considering its association with the abnormal, Leon found an excuse to send his younger siblings away, emptying the house. A tin mouse, a scratching post, a salted fish toy, a catfishing rod, a ball with a bell inside. After arranging the collection of cat toys in the room, preparing a couple of large bowls, one half filled with water, the other full of cat food, Leon nodded with satisfaction. Just as he was about to sit down to rest, he realized he forgot the litter box. After searching through the empty house unsuccessfully for a suitable container, Leon ended up using his wash basin, filling it with sand from outside. All set. If the thing knocking soon was really a cat and not some large feline, surely it would be satisfied with his hospitality. Full of confidence, Leon waited, and soon enough, at 3:30, there came a knock at his door. Knock, knock, knock. Coming. Taking a deep breath, Leon walked nervously to open the door. Fortunately, it wasn't a large feline outside, but a small, short-legged cat with fluffy long fur. Meow. Accompanied by a slightly milky-sounding meow, as if in greeting, the gray and white cat courteously nodded to Leon, then reached up to its back with a paw to retrieve a card from a small pouch and handed it over. Hello, I am Mango, the pet of the witch under contract with your Purification Bureau. After glancing at Leon, confirming he could read and had finished reading the card, the cat named Mango quickly pulled out another card before he could speak. Don't ask why I'm not a black cat. Other witches keep black cats because they like wearing black clothes, making the fur less noticeable. I just wanted to say hello, but I was a bit curious. Nodding to show his understanding, Leon smiled gently and said, So, your owner likes to wear gray or white clothes? Meow. Shaking its head to indicate otherwise, although cute, the cat had a small chawn formed by the fur on its brow, giving it a naturally grumpy look. Fetched a third card to hand over. My owner likes playing flying ball, and any fur on their clothes is blown away, so they don't care. Oh, so that's how it is. After exchanging a few awkward card conversations, when he saw the clearly intelligent cat at the door, Leon thought of his preparations and scratched the back of his head with embarrassment. Well, it's obviously not an ordinary cat. Will it even like what I prepared? Looking back at the bowls on the table and the basin of sand on the floor, Leon swallowed anxiously and hesitantly asked, Well, can I ask how I should entertain you? After Leon spoke, the cat first pulled at the fabric on its collar, revealing a pink scarf embroidered with rabbits, then turned its head to rummage through its pouch on the back, taking out a fourth card to hand over. My requirements aren't high, just like before. Go. Low requirements are good. Having read the card, Leon was instantly relieved. However, before he could invite the cat inside, he was handed a fifth card. Regarding food, for starters, I only need boiled soft carrots and peas, followed by any tuna salad. Not picky about the main course, just half a portion of herring sashimi and cucumber rolls. Also, I traveled quite far to get here and need to freshen up. Could you take me to the restroom first? Human? What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? At night, in the military base personnel's family area filled with sentry posts, there was a villa that, despite being very large, was almost devoid of decorations. Isha, seeing her daughter sitting on the sofa in a daze, hugging a giant plush toy, a tall woman walked over, worried. First, she checked her daughter's forehead temperature with her chin, then embraced her gently, asking softly, What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell somewhere? Feeling the familiar warm embrace, the policewoman shook her head and then wrapped her arms around her mother's waist, burying her face deeply into her lap as she replied sullenly, I'm actually okay. It's just some things at work didn't go smoothly. Is that so? Hearing her daughter wasn't sick, the woman breathed a sigh of relief and then asked softly while gently stroking her daughter's smooth long hair, Is it still the matter with the Ryan family? Are they still refusing the investigation? No, this time it's another thing. recalling the scene she saw at noon and the investigation results on Leon Lane. The policewoman lifted her head from her mother's lap, her eyes complex as she said, "Mom, 3 months ago, about father. Did the military stop many compensation payments prematurely? That did happen." Hearing her daughter's inquiry, the woman recalled and then said helplessly, "You know, the military's expenses have been too high in recent years, and the kingdom's finances can hardly sustain it. So this year, spending was cut by a third. Your father sighs every day when he comes home." "Isha, what made you think to ask this? I just feel it's really unfair." Recalling the file she transferred in the afternoon, which almost drove a family to death, the woman's eyes turned sorrowful, and her voice grew louder. "The military has 47 departments, and each has significant expenses. There are so many areas where spending could be cut. Why does it have to be the compensation funds? Mom, do you know? Many who are still receiving compensation are the families left behind from the war 6 years ago, orphans without parents. Many of them don't even have the ability to support themselves and rely on that bit of compensation to survive. Isn't stopping it early just forcing them to death?" Isha. Hearing what her daughter said, the woman couldn't help but be slightly startled. Then her expression turned serious as she said with a stern voice, "Who taught you to ask such things?" "No one taught me. This is what I thought. But you never used to think of these things. You always. People change. Asterisk, but you were once. Ugh, forget it. Asterisk." Watching her daughter purse her lips tightly, obviously stubborn now, the woman rubbed her brow with resignation, then lowered her voice to remind her, "I don't care where you heard this from, but just share these thoughts with me. Okay? Please don't say such things in front of your father." "Why?" the policewoman asked, her eyes full of discontent. Even if he didn't propose it himself, a decision this outrageous had his tacit approval at least. Having done it, he should. "Isha." Cutting off her increasingly intense words, the woman scolded her sharply. "You're old enough to understand more now. Do you know how much pressure your father is under with everything that has happened this year? Don't add to his problems with your questions." "Then what about the trouble he caused me?" Thinking about the man she met at noon, wearing an old coat and happily eating pudding spilled on the table, with bitterness in her heart, the policewoman couldn't help but say, "Mom, I met someone today whose parents both died in the war 6 years ago, but the compensation he got over these years was only a third, forcing him to support his family at the age 13 or 14, carrying packages under the summer sun, and spending a day soaked in cold water at the docks cleaning cargo ships. You think that's outrageous enough already, right? But, Mom, after father signed his name, the remaining compensation was also stopped, and he still has 2 younger siblings, only 6 and 7. His sick sister stopped taking medicine to save money and almost died in the hospital." Sigh. Seeing her daughter's eyes turning red, the woman who understood the military situation sighed with a guilty expression. "Your father truly had no choice. Isha, how is that family now? I still have some money, perhaps." "No need. He shouldn't be short of money now." The policewoman took a deep breath, turning her head, speaking softly with complex emotions. "He joined the rebels and became an undercover agent in the police department, disrupting our capture operation today and rescuing a rebel involved in the assassination of the princess." "So is it really me causing father trouble? Or is it him causing trouble for me?" Glancing at her speechless mother, the policewoman sneered, sitting back on the sofa, her eyes fixed on the entrance. "Now, can I ask? I really want to know, with a proposal as awful as this, in what frame of mind did he sign his name?" Watching her daughter, who was holding a soft toy yet looked like a hedgehog ready to prick, the woman had no choice but to comfort softly. "Isha, listen to me. Don't persuade me." Turning away with stubborn defiance, the policewoman said, "One should have the courage to bear what they've done, as he taught me. But he also taught you that some responsibilities are destined to be above all else." Patting her daughter's back, the woman said with dim eyes, In the war 6 years ago, not only did others sacrifice, your brother and 2 uncles died too, and this cut in compensation started with our family. Stop! Don't refute yet. I know our family doesn't need the compensation to survive, but I just want to say, don't think too badly of your father. Maintaining this military mess, he's truly trying his best. Looking up at the empty room on the second floor, thinking of her long-lost eldest son from 6 years ago, tears welled up in her eyes as she said, "Early this year, after the former military head was executed for overstepping, numerous gaps had to be filled with spending severely cut. At that time, everyone knew this hole couldn't be filled, and the successor would face consequences. Those eligible were unwilling to take this hot potato. Only your father stepped forward." Recalling her husband, growing more silent, emaciated, and hunched over the past year, she grasped her daughter's hand, voice trembling. "That war, 6 years ago, left a permanent scar in your father's heart. The military problems are far too significant. If left unchecked, or if replaced with an incompetent successor, won't history replay itself? You really can't let go. I know stopping the compensation is excessive, but have you noticed? Since taking on this burden, in just over half a year, half of your father's hair turned white, almost drained by military affairs. But couldn't he just—" "Isha, your father really did his best." Interrupting her daughter's words, the woman sighed. "I witnessed everything he could do this year, and yet it couldn't fill the gaps, reluctantly agreeing to cut spending here. Moreover, he gave strict orders for the consolation officer to visit at least 3 times within 2 months and ensure those affected can still maintain living before stopping compensation. But he only had one pair of eyes, couldn't oversee everyone. Despite preparations, such issues are inevitable. Sigh, Isha. For my sake, please, go back to your room. Don't let him worry anymore, all right?" "All right? Fine." The stubbornly spirited policewoman eventually yielded to her mother's gentle plea, reluctantly leaving the sofa. Pushed back to her room, she lay on her soft bed, clutching the toy. Yet, unlike usual, worn out as she was, she didn't fall into a peaceful sleep, but instead stared at the ceiling light in a daze. Father was right to desperately maintain the military. I was right in capturing the rebels wreaking havoc. And he, driven to the rebels by revoked compensation, wasn't wrong either. So who is truly at fault? I was wrong. After inspecting the witch's broom on the table and finding it temporarily unusable, the red-haired director rubbed his temples seriously and confessed to Leon. "I forgot to consider your situation. The previous owner of this broom was very wealthy and a classic cat lover, quite generous in this regard. Although she told me that the cat only needed standard care, her idea of standard was rather high for most people. Well, but you don't need to worry too much." After tinkering with the witch's broom and confirming it was only unable to be activated, rather than losing its abnormalities entirely, the red-haired director reassured. "The Lion Bureau has always been in contact with that witch. I'll ask them to help explain things for you, and even if the witch can't be reached for a while, it doesn't matter. Just as long as you still have the broom. According to the contract, the cat will come next Friday. By then, just spend some quality time with her and avoid using your wash basin as a litter box, and the witch's broom should return to normal." After hearing the director's words, Leon, overwhelmed with tasks, couldn't help but frown. "So, if it takes a while, it could be a week. If it takes time, it might be a week. Quickly, it might be 2 or 3 days. It depends on when the witches' tournament finishes." After giving an uncertain timeline, the red-haired director spoke with a smile. "It's fine. If it takes a week, it takes a week. There's no rush to sneak into the Ryan family. The heart of that dead sheep probably won't run off in the meantime. And aren't you planning to move? Anyway, it's bound to be troublesome. So you might as well use this time to tidy up and manage some errands." That made sense. Thinking about his stalled bronze shooting badge and unpacked luggage at home, Leon nodded in agreement with the director, but then remembered something and hesitantly asked, Senior Emma told me that the deeper you understand the abnormal, the more abnormal objects you encounter, the more you attract new anomalies. Though Happiness Apartment is harmless and can protect its tenants, it counts as an anomalous object, right? If my whole family moves there, just move. They won't be targeted by anomalies. The red-haired director waved his hand. The onset of corrosion begins with knowledge. They know nothing of anomalous objects' existence, neither aware of utilizing them nor comprehending their existence, so they belong to ordinary people and won't be targeted. The only thing you need to be careful about is not using anomalous objects in front of them, because once they move into Happiness Apartment, the Lion Bureau's brain of the evil god will no longer confuse their memories. I got it. After the director's explanation, Leon finally relaxed, nodded, and reached for the broom on the table, intending to leave, but the director stopped him. Wait, take a look at this. Is this a newspaper? Did something abnormal happen and it got reported? Seeing the stack of newspapers handed over by the red-haired director, Leon's expression tightened, instantly switching to work mode as he earnestly flipped through them. Winter Romance Matchmaking Event. Find the one for you. 8 practical tips. Teach you how to lose belly fat in 30 days. New Miku lingerie in-store. Inviting all to try on. Spray perfume here. Just one hug to ignite his passion. Wrong. Not charming focus. You're supposed to look at the next one. Snatching back the marked newspaper from Leon, the red-haired director coughed lightly to cover a small embarrassment, then pulled out the Sun News from the stack and nodded toward the prominent first-page headline. Look, the power company's issue has been exposed. Made the papers just this morning. So besides me, someone else had their eyes on the power company's issue? Upon hearing the news of the power company's exposure, Leon couldn't help but feel a burst of joy. Although Charles Department Store took on the compensations and those hospitalized have already been compensated, thereby bypassing the need for a full revelation of the truth. For Leon, who experienced the faces of those 3 noble families firsthand, witnessing those bastards embroiled in controversy itself was a great pleasure. Yet this headline, Sewage Incident Deliberate? Thomas Ryan. The evidence is fabricated. Thomas, that's the name of the blonde middle-aged man from the Ryan family, right? So the power company's issue has merely been unmasked, with no final conclusions yet? Reading the neutral headline, Leon frowned slightly and sighed inwardly. If only the evidence wasn't lost. After knocking out that damned editor from the Daily, Leon was planning to make a trip to Charles Department Store to hand over the evidence proving the intent behind the sewage incident. However, he was blocked by that toad right in front of the exit. When he was transported from the shopping mall to right before it, he had a sheep's head in one hand and a broom in the other, leaving no room to carry anything else, so the evidence must have fallen in the shopping mall. Though he dealt with the toad later, he was then slammed into the hospital by the Golden Will Mountain. By the time he woke up and went to look for it, it was gone, probably picked up by someone. Damn, so you're the one who picked it up. After noticing the phrase evidence was picked up by a reporter from Charles Department Store headquarters, in the report, Leon's face darkened, already predicting the aftermath. Sure enough, in an interview, that golden-haired Thomas scoffed at the evidence's authenticity, declaring the power company never experienced a theft, and the claim of deliberately flooding Charles Department Store with sewage was absurd. He even took the chance to cynically taunt Charles Department Store, subtly implying in his remarks that old Charles was attempting to avoid massive compensation by shuffling the public's attention. Sigh. Upon reading up to this point, Leon knew there was no need to read further into the report. As a major shareholder of Charles Power Company, if this evidence was disclosed by Charles Department Store, it naturally would hold some credibility. Even if the reporter claimed to have received anonymous tips, it could still induce some doubt, garnering at least attention. But that reporter was astonishingly upright, blatantly writing that he found the intelligence casually, not even fearing accusations of grasping at shadows. Well, never mind. Compared to others who wouldn't dare report it, his daring to expose the matter was commendable, even if he genuinely spoke the truth since the evidence was indeed picked up. Shaking his head ruefully, Leon didn't dwell on it for too long. Instead, He calmly returned the newspaper to the red-haired director. "Aren't you going to say something?" Seeing an unconcerned and mildly frustrated Leon who didn't seem overly angry, the red-haired director raised an eyebrow and asked with a smile, "Those 3 families escaped punishment. I thought you'd be displeased. Why don't you look mad at all?" "Of course, I'm angry." Leon shook his head and said, "But my stealing evidence wasn't meant to uphold justice. It was to ensure the patients received compensation, not just lying in the hospital screaming. While the outcome isn't perfect, it fulfills the original goal. The rest, I'll note down and address in the future if the chance arises. Do you have anything else? If not, I'd like to practice at the shooting range for a few days." "No, nothing else. Go ahead." "Go ahead." Watching Leon leave with a smile, the red-haired director took a sip of tea, narrowing his eyes thoughtfully. "So it's not giving up entirely, but rather remembering it for future opportunities? Speaking of which, I told him to sneak into the Ryan family under the guise of a reunion, but would he seize this opportunity to stir up a big story for me?" Bang! Bang! Amidst the deafening gunfire, Leon, who was preparing to earn his badge, hurriedly entered the shooting range of the police department with his beloved sniper rifle. Due to the strict weapon regulations in Capital City, nightsticks and whips were generally sufficient to handle most cases, with firearms rarely needed. As a result, few people practiced shooting. Moreover, today was a rest day, so in the vast shooting range, only 3 or 5 positions were occupied, with the majority left empty. Great! The emptiness meant no need to queue for air tanks. Satisfied with the empty range, Leon greeted the person responsible for checking weapons and distributing earmuffs. He then carried 2 large boxes of nail rounds and laid down at a shooting position closest to the air storage area. Although he rarely came to the range due to limited free time, Leon was diligent about his badge progression. He typically came here right after work, staying until sunset before leaving. Under his relatively diligent practice, he had completed over half of the 5,000 live-fire shots required for badge progression. With just over 2,000 more shots needed, he estimated about 13 to 14 hours more of shooting, at a rate of completing 2 to 3 snipes per minute on average. After roughly calculating his progress, Leon didn't immediately start shooting. Instead, he first looked up at the sky. It didn't seem like it was going to rain, so he figured he could probably shoot for another 7 or 8 hours today. Once it got dark, he'd head home to help Anna pack, hire a carriage in the morning to move their stuff to Happiness Apartment, and then come back to shoot for 4 or 5 more hours. That should be just about enough. Come to think of it, the witch's broom malfunctioning came at just the right time. Due to a temporary lack of protective anomalies, he wasn't quite in a position to go on missions, allowing him to come shoot during work hours and have a justified reason to be late in the mornings, using that time to move house. Just perfect. After silently celebrating his good luck, Leon didn't delay any further. He raised the small yellow flag representing 500 meters and waved it toward the position of the administrators. Sigh! Upon seeing the familiar little yellow flag, the 2 administrators exchanged glances and sighed in unison. Stop staring. Go grab the targets. Squinting at the figure on the sniper's perch, confirming it really was that troublesome guy, the older administrator rubbed his temples with a look of helplessness, saying, "You'd better bring the cart, take them over by the bundle." Sigh. Rolling Bullet doesn't leave until sunset each time. Coming so early today, he's probably going to shoot for a long time. I'm thinking the same. Sigh. Watch this spot for me for a bit. Glancing at Leon in the distance, who was adjusting his earmuffs and calibrating his firearm, the younger administrator sighed from the bottom of his heart, feeling quite unfortunate. Rolling Bullet was the nickname the range administrators had privately given Leon. After becoming familiar with the shooting conditions of the range, his accuracy improved significantly, focusing almost exclusively on the 500-meter extreme range targets. Once a nail fired from a nail gun exceeded its maximum stable range, it would uncontrollably tumble in the air, hence Leon, who specialized in rolling bullets, was honored with the administrator's affectionate nickname of Rolling Bullet, and their fervent hope that he would leave soon. The reason? Other shots left only small bullet holes on the targets, usually needing a target change every 40 or 50 shots. But nails that tumbled beyond range created holes the size of a baby's fist on impact. If they hit the right spots, just 2 or 3 shots could nearly break a wooden target in half, forcing the administrators to constantly replace targets. Coupled with rolling bullets, astonishing accuracy rate, serving him was more troublesome than taking care of 10 other officers. Really thought working on a Sunday would mean an easy day, but it turned into a chore, pushing a cart piled high with targets. The young administrator returned to the controls with a sigh and asked with a bitter face, "So, how's Rolling Bullet doing today?" His hand feels astonishingly good. He's broken almost 50 targets. But what's more problematic isn't even that. After rubbing his tightly furrowed brow, the older administrator, distressed, said, "I went to the ammunition side and asked. Rolling Bullet took up 2 whole boxes of nails today, amounting to over 1,000 rounds. How many? Over 1,000 rounds? Does that mean he plans to shoot all day?" Hearing that terrifying number, the young administrator gasped, feeling his head throb, joining the growing chorus of pain, gnashing his teeth as he said, "Firing targets for 8 hours straight. The buttstock could jam back and fracture a bone. Isn't he afraid of the pain?" "I don't know if he's not afraid of the pain, but if he plans to shoot all day, we'll definitely exhaust ourselves to death here."
No.
"We absolutely cannot let him shoot here all day." Seeing the extraordinarily heavy custom wooden targets on the cart, the thought of possibly changing these several hundred times today made the young administrator's shoulder ache instantly. He slammed the targets, stood up, and said with fierce brow, "Let's go. We need to ask him to change places." So you're planning to beg? That stance looks more like a demand. Glancing speechlessly at his colleague, the older administrator didn't object, rather standing up to help appeal their case, hoping to steer the trouble elsewhere and spare their own aching, osteoporosis-ridden bones. However, before the two even left the control room, something familiar occurred over by Rolling Bullet's position. A shadow they recognized well approached him first. Is that Isha from the Secret Investigation Bureau? Seeing the female officer standing behind Rolling Bullet with a hesitant expression, the two administrators exchanged a glance, almost simultaneously recalling yesterday's rumor. Yesterday at lunchtime, the agency's flower took her tray and sat across from a man, but he seemed uninterested, not accepting the spontaneous attraction, instead voluntarily changing seats. More absurdly, Isha, with a surname matching a prominent military leader and a background undoubtedly complex, shamelessly followed after him again, almost like an obsessed woman, genuinely startling many who witnessed it. Although the two ended up arguing, parting unhappily with Isha even flipping her tray in anger, many saw her return, standing at the cafeteria entrance gazing longingly at him. Kiss. So that guy was Rolling Bullet? A juicy revelation seemed ready to unveil its tender insides before them. The younger administrator suddenly felt neither shoulder aches nor arm pains, buzzing with energy, turning to the colleague whose eyes gleamed similarly. Should we wait a bit? Sure. It's you again. Unaware that he had become the centerpiece of the police department's biggest gossip, Leon, upon sensing someone behind him, turned around and saw it was that troublemaker again. His face immediately darkened. As a person with a relatively mild temperament, most of his anger from the previous day had cooled off. But seeing this persistent individual made his temper flare once more. "Are you done yet?" He put down the large rifle, stepped back from the shooting position, dusted off the dirt on his clothes, and asked with a pulled face, "I've already said it many times. What happened yesterday morning was just an accident. The reason your target got away was mainly because your disguise had too many flaws. You didn't look like someone selling coffee at all. Besides, even if I did make you lose your capture target, you handcuffed me all morning and took away my lunch in the cafeteria. Isn't that enough? If you keep pestering me, don't blame me for being rude." Hearing Leon bring up yesterday's incident, recalling being played for a fool in the morning and the awkward situation in the cafeteria, the policewoman's temper flared. She glared and was about to shout back. But when she noticed Leon's slender figure and the old coat covered in dust he wore, her momentum suddenly deflated. She slouched slightly and murmured softly, "Can't you just talk to me properly?" "Oh? Did you take the wrong medication or something?" Watching the policewoman transform from a fierce lioness 1 second to a bullied wife the next, Leon's mind lagged, and his accusatory momentum deflated as well. Is this a trap hidden under a smile? A show of courtesy before force? A secret strategy? Or some new tactic I've never heard of? Just as Leon was bewildered by her soft words, staring suspiciously at the policewoman and trying to figure out what she was up to, he saw her pinch the hem of her clothes and timidly ask, "How have you been lately?" I truly can't understand what she wants to do. Completely baffled by the policewoman's seemingly split personality, Leon paused for several seconds. Eventually, by frantically recalling her annoying traits, he barely gathered some remaining anger and replied grumpily, "Thanks for your concern, but apart from being hounded by a petty troublemaker, I haven't encountered much misfortune recently." "You?" Barely managing to suppress her anger, only to be mocked again right in front of her, the already short-tempered policewoman grew angrier. She raised her head sharply, glared back, and barked, "As long as you're okay." After sneaking a glance at Leon's twitching eyelids and the uncomfortable expression reminiscent of tasting beef stewed in chocolate, the policewoman also turned her head away. Only when her line of sight no longer contained the old coat did she feel somewhat relieved. There was no helping it. After reading Leon's file yesterday and learning about the wrongs her father and the military had done to his family, the policewoman felt so guilty she couldn't sleep a wink, leaving scratch marks all over the walls around her. During other rebel captures in the past, she wasn't unaware of their angry accusations. Still, at most, she only sympathized with their plight and remained unyielding when it was time to act, because she firmly believed that no matter what injustices a person had suffered, joining the rebels and seeking revenge through means that endangered innocent people, such as assassination, poisoning, and bombing, made them a new perpetrator and they should bear their own crimes. But Leon's file was excessively clean. Apart from a single extremely radical remark and disrupting a capture operation, it was almost entirely about him struggling to survive through hard, tireless work. He not only didn't raise a blade against innocents but even saved an entire hospital of people. The evaluations he received were full of words like hardworking, diligent, and kind-hearted, with almost no one speaking ill of him. He was the type of impeccable victim who could not be criticized. What's more damning, the injustices and betrayals he faced largely stemmed from the military, controlled by her father. Even her father's signature appeared on the proposal to prematurely stop pension payments to Leon's parents. I'm doomed. I'll never be able to hold my head up in front of this guy. Biting her lip with a mix of grievance and grief, the policewoman turned to the pile of gas cylinders and tried to sound as stern as possible when she asked, "What exactly are you trying to do with such dangerous shooting practice?" Damn it! As she stared at the face that had intruded on her view full of confusion, the policewoman, half-hardened then softened, shut her eyes tightly, steeled herself, and tried again. "I'm warning you. This highly dangerous shooting method has been banned by the police department. From now on, I will carefully check the records of the nails distributed to you. If any similar attacks occur in the capital city, you'd better be able to account for every nail fired. Don't think I will stop investigating you just because you haven't slipped up. I'll keep a close watch on you. Leon Lane, listen to me. You don't have a record of harming innocents yet. It's not too late to turn back. I know you've suffered a lot of injustices, but that's not a reason to give up on yourself. I can help you get rid of them too. Did you hear me? Speak up." Maintaining an angry expression and shouting for quite a while without receiving any response, the policewoman cautiously opened her eyes and peeked. Her face quickly flushed. turning from embarrassment to a liver color instantly. The damnable idiot rebel had already put on soundproof ear-muffs, with only his rear aimed at her while lying back down at the over-a-meter-high shooting position. All her heartfelt advice earlier had unknowingly been given to his backside. Ah! Watching his two buttocks calmly facing her, swaying wildly with the recoil of the gunshots as if mocking her, the policewoman, overwhelmed with humiliation, let out a scream, then clenched her fists and rushed forward, delivering a full-strength punch to that damnable backside. Ah! What the hell is wrong with you? Bro! Hearing the slightly strange footsteps and worryingly opening the door ahead of time, Anna dropped the bag in her hands and hurried over upon seeing Leon covered in dust and limping. As she brushed the dust off his body, she asked worriedly, "Bro, what happened to you?" Even though I don't have to go on missions, I'm still part of the police department, so I practiced some combat." Sneakily rubbing his still faintly aching rear, Leon waved dismissively, half-truthfully lying. "It wasn't really anything, but the person I was sparring with was a bit off. I got punched in the thigh. It'll be fine after moving it a bit. By the way, have you finished packing? Can we make the move tomorrow morning? Everything's packed up and stacked in your room. You can move it tomorrow." Although Anna noticed Leon was changing the subject, she didn't expose him. She smiled faintly and helped Leon into the room. Strangely, instead of leading the injured Leon to a chair, she took him to the small bed in the guest room. She then piled the pillows and bedding to make a comfortable cushion for him to lie on. "I knew I couldn't hide it from you." Leon had wanted to maintain his dignity as the older brother and didn't want his sister to know about the spanking. But since Anna had already responded with her actions, Leon couldn't keep pretending. He lay down obediently on the bedding with a stern face. However, as he lay down, his skin rubbed against the coarse fabric, igniting a sharp pain that made his whole body tense. Hiss! That lunatic may have had a twisted mind, but her strength was real, especially that smack. Even on my thickest flesh. Oh, crap! As he rested on the bed, Leon felt a chill on his backside as his pants were pulled down slightly, exposing part of his rear to the cold air. "Oh my! It's all swollen." Seeing Leon's swollen backside, Anna's earlier amused expression faltered and shifted to slight heartache. "Stay put. I'll get the ointment." "Wait." Hurriedly pulling his pants back up, Leon endured the pain and got up, a bit embarrassed. "I can actually do it myself. You better just stay down." Anna rolled her eyes at Leon's bravado. As she rummaged through her packed luggage, she grumbled, "I'm your sister. Why be shy about me applying ointment? When you were bedridden with a high fever for months, didn't I take care of you? Not just applying ointment. Trimming nails, feeding you, doing your hair, turning you over to clean you, even helping you to the bathroom in the middle of the night. That was all." "Stop, stop, stop." Seeing his sister in rare chatterbox mode, recalling those warm yet embarrassing times, Leon, feeling exceptionally awkward, obediently lay back down, even loosening his belt a bit. Seeing he had surrendered, Anna chuckled and said no more. She found the ointment, sat on the bedside, and pulled Leon's pants down again, exposing the injury. "What?" Upon seeing the handprint on Leon's backside, the frail girl blinked in surprise, then reached out her right hand, slightly measuring the distance. "That size, if you don't count the swollen parts, seems like a woman's hand? Liar. You told me it was combat training?" Anna glared at the oblivious Leon lying on the bed, then bit her lip in dissatisfaction. She squirted some ointment into her palm, rubbed it warm, and pressed down firmly onto the center of the handprint. "What kind of combat training leaves a woman's handprint on your backside?" Ouch! What was imagined as gentle and soothing ointment application turned into a forceful touch of a tigress. Caught off guard, Leon shouted in pain, about to complain about his sister's heavy hand, but then heard Anna nervously say, "Oh no, maybe I used too much strength. Brother, does it hurt?" "Kinda. Still bearable." "Since it's bearable." Looking at the handprint on Leon's backside, The sickly girl scrunched her little nose, huffed silently at Leon's rear, then lifted her delicate hand, pressing down hard once again. Then hang in there. Rubbing it out will make the swelling go down faster. After enduring a session of gentle torture, the frail girl lifted her sleeve to gently wipe away the cold sweat from Leon's forehead, her face showing concern. Brother, didn't you say it didn't hurt? Why are you sweating so much? Maybe it's because it's hot. After responding with a lie even he didn't believe, Leon looked at his sister, who still had a sweet, gentle expression. Although his backside felt much more comfortable, it had gone through quite an ordeal. He couldn't help but ponder with a trace of bitterness. Did I upset her? Was it about helping her pack at home but returning late? Or that I got hurt again so soon after being discharged? Or perhaps, oh, so it's because of the heat, that's good then. Anna looked at Leon, whose expression was a mix of suspicion and unease. She hummed in her heart, sealed the small jar of ointment, and turned to tidy up the baggage that had been rummaged through. However, just as she wrapped the small jar in a towel and placed it among a stack of old clothes, something wrapped in old clothes quivered slightly and jumped out of the luggage. It fell and landed near Leon's hand. Feeling something bump against his hand, Leon curiously moved to take a look and saw it was an old family album left by their parents, the one he had flipped through with Anna before. Although he wanted to finish looking at the photos, he worried that it might remind his sister of something sad. Leon shook his head, restrained his curiosity, and handed the album back without looking up. Anna, something dropped. Oh? Okay. Seeing Leon didn't open the old album, the pale-faced girl let out a deep breath. She steadied her trembling hands and grabbed the album tightly by the edge, clutching it until her knuckles turned pale. Yet, even though she used all her strength, an old photo still squeezed out stubbornly from the yellowing album's back cover and slid in front of Leon. Is this Anna with our parents? Seeing the couple standing together in the photo, each holding Anna's hand and smiling happily at the camera, Leon, lying by the bed, couldn't help but smile. He was about to pick up the photo and return it when he noticed something odd, causing him to exclaim unconsciously. Above the parents' heads was a sign that read "Family Portrait," suggesting the photo was taken in a studio, but the image only showed the parents and Anna. Leon and their two other siblings were missing. Burned. I had clearly burned it. Seeing Leon staring at the photo dazedly, Anna turned pale and bit her lip hard. She pinched her inner thigh harshly to regain her composure. After forcibly calming herself through pain, a touch of color returned to her cheeks. She sat down close to Leon, making sure he couldn't see her expression, then leaned over to pick up the photo and said with a faintly regretful tone, "Oh dear, it seems the adhesive on the back has dried up over time. Once we've moved tomorrow, I'll go buy some glue and see if I can stick it back again." Although it was a bit strange that the family photograph only had 3 people, Leon, having seen other photos with himself and his parents, didn't think much of it. He casually asked, "When was this picture taken? Why is it just you in the family photo without the 3 of us?" "It's just a mistake by the photo studio." Seeing that Leon wasn't overthinking it, Anna secretly breathed a sigh of relief and tried to answer as smoothly as possible. "When we were getting the photo taken, the previous family had just left, and the person taking down the props accidentally left the family photograph sign, which resulted in this particular picture. Mom wasn't very happy and wanted them to take down the sign and retake the photo, but Dad really liked Mom's smile in the photo, and since the studio agreed to charge only half the price, they decided to keep it as it was. So that's what happened." Nodding in sudden understanding, Leon lay on the bed, inhaling sharply, and then said nonchalantly, "What about the 3 of us? Why were you the only one there?" "Because Melanie and they weren't born until the following year, and this picture was initially meant just for me." Anna opened the photo album, flipped through it, and took out another photo with the same background. Handing it over, she smiled brightly and said, "It was after a community school exam. Your score was among the lowest in the whole school while I got first place. Mom asked what gift I wanted, and I said I wanted a photo to commemorate it. See, the badge on my chest was given by the school to the first place winner. Although I wanted you to join in the photo, you were sulking at the time, saying you didn't want to be in it because your grades were bad, and you stubbornly refused to be photographed with me. In the end, it was just me. Ah, was I really that stubborn when I was little? Hearing about his childhood antics, Leon, who didn't have related memories, couldn't help but scratch his head, looking at Anna with a little embarrassment. Were you disappointed then? Not really, because I did it on purpose. Flashing a mischievous smile at Leon, the frail girl smiled brightly and said, "When we were kids, you always liked to snatch things from me, even trying to take my dolls. But you ran faster, jumped higher, and were physically stronger, even ate more than I did, and I hated it. Luckily, you were particularly mischievous and always did poorly in school. I finally had something over you, so I seized that chance to annoy you, and that's why you were too sulky to take that photo with me. You're really holding grudges since childhood." Leon shook his head speechlessly. Then, while lying on the bed, waved his hand dismissing Anna. "All right, since the ointment is applied, you should hurry back to sleep. We have to get up early tomorrow. Then I'm heading back. Be careful while you sleep, so you don't hurt yourself again. You know it hurts and still used such force." "Got it. Got it." Mimicking his sister's expression, Leon rolled his eyes at her, then turned his head to look at the small window in the guest room, casually asking with his back to the door, "By the way, are you sure about my birthday?" Hearing Leon's question, Anna, who was about to leave, trembled all over and then replied softly without looking back, "How could that be wrong? Why did you suddenly think to ask this?" "It's nothing really. I just met a divination master who is said to be very accurate." Lying on the bed, Leon narrowed his eyes and then yawned as he explained. "She asked for my birthday and then calculated a bunch of gibberish, and everything she calculated was inaccurate. Maybe feeling embarrassed, she insisted that the birthday I told her was wrong. It's like someone with 3 legs blaming the road for being uneven. Funny, right? That depends on whether you paid her or not." Hearing that Leon was asking casually, Anna, relieved, regained her composure and responded with a smile. "If you didn't pay, then she's the funny one. If you did, then you're the funny one. Go on, you're the funny one. It's so late. Just go back and sleep." Putting on the elder brother's authority, Leon shooed away his teasing sister. But after seeing Anna's reflection in the small window, relieved and somewhat hurriedly leaving, his brow furrowed tightly. Though Anna covered it up well, there were still hints of abnormality. Maybe others wouldn't notice, but to Leon, who had once lived with her day and night and endured hell for 2 years, these abnormalities were too apparent. She was hiding something from me. Based on Anna's character, seeing the photo fall, she would likely only say, "Oh dear, it fell," instead of giving such a long explanation. Moreover, she stopped packing and sat on the bed, almost deliberately giving him a chance to ask questions. Plus, looking at her photo, it must have been at least 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even longer. Yet, upon hearing his question, she responded without any process of recalling. Just a few sentences, and she recounted everything from back then in detail, explaining it all seamlessly, almost as if she'd rehearsed it countless times. When he asked about his birthday later, her visibly startled reaction in the window reflection confirmed his suspicions. Just like the Black Goat said, the master of starry skies almost never made mistakes, so the day at the hydro company was indeed his birthday. And Anna's peculiar behavior proved she certainly knew something, yet for some reason didn't want to tell the truth, even concocting a pre-prepared lie. Faced with such blatant evidence, influenced by all sorts of dramatic storylines in his previous life, Leon instantly formed a natural suspicion. So, was I adopted? Entertaining this rather dramatic idea, Leon, laden with an unusually complex mix of emotions, immediately got out of bed. Quietly tiptoeing to the packed luggage, he pulled out the old photo album and started flipping through it. However, after looking through the old photos for a while, Leon turned his gaze back to the small window, staring at the reflection of the jet-black hair identical to his father's and the sharp features strikingly similar to his mother's, and once again felt confused. Asterisk, even if it was an adoption, it wouldn't be possible to simultaneously have features from both sides if I were the child of a relative, right? Am I overthinking this? Asterisk. With a stomach full of unresolved confusion, Leon tossed and turned until the middle of the night before barely catching a little sleep. When dawn was just breaking, although far from enough sleep, he was awakened from his dreams by Anna, and upon learning that the coach had arrived, Leon could only bleary-eyed get up, shoulder the luggage, and head to Veteran Lane's entrance. Struggling to stuff the luggage into the cargo compartment, and after telling the coachman the location they had rented, Leon, who had slept only for about an hour, gathered his equally sleepy younger siblings and climbed into the four-person carriage. As Anna, following behind and getting into the carriage, watched him so tired that he barely could open his eyes, she helplessly yet amusedly complained, "Bro, didn't you go to bed quite early last night? Why are you this tired now?" "Last night? Ha! Last night my mind was a bit cluttered. Barely slept in the first half of the night. Let me lean for a bit." Swaying slightly with the movement of the carriage, leaning against the shoulder of Anna, who appeared somewhat flustered, Leon, indeed extremely tired, narrowed his eyes slightly and, with 3 parts probing and utmost sincerity, whispered a promise in her ear. "Don't worry about the things you don't want to say, I won't ask. Also, you can lean on me just as I'm leaning on you. I promise you, no matter what happens in the future, you will always be my sister. No matter what happens, am I still your sister?" Looking at Leon, who seemed to have already fallen asleep, leaning peacefully on her shoulder and breathing lightly, the promised Anna found no relief. Instead, she unconsciously bit her lips until they turned pale. Asterisk, but what if I'm not your sister at all, and all the happiness I have now is stolen? After you find out what I've done to you, will you still think the same way? Asterisk. In the midst of the sickly girl's fears and anxiety, the carriage that carried the family of 4 raced through the streets of Capital City. On the carriage, Leon was woken up by the whistle when it arrived, after barely a 30-minute nap. Could carriages really be this fast? Rubbing his sleepy eyes and yawning again, Leon first reached over to smooth out the creases on Anna's shoulder. Then he gave a pat on the behind of each of his younger siblings, who were snoring on the seat opposite him. "Wake up! We're at the new home! We're here!" Hearing Leon's words, William rubbed his eyes and sat up, imitating Leon's gesture to tidy up his rumpled clothes. Without mercy, he then nudged his sister's ribs. "Get up! We've arrived! Don't make noise!" Melanie, disturbed from a sweet dream, grumbled twice, her little feet in small leather shoes kicking into the void. Then, like a little grub, she squirmed along the seat in an attempt to get away from William, leaving a saliva trail over 10 centimeters long. "Let me sleep a little longer. EW. So disgusting." Disgusted, William grabbed Melanie's arm and used her sleeve to wipe the saliva off the seat. Then he patted her face, saying, "Quickly wake up. Our new home is on the 6th floor. If you don't get up, how will you go up? Don't pat." Pouting, she crawled up from the seat and saw Leon, who looked helpless on the opposite side. Melanie's eyes immediately lit up, and she stretched out her arms toward him. "I want to sleep in Big Brother's arms. Big Brother can carry me up." "Nope. Big Brother really can't carry you today." "Ah? Why not?" "Because Big Brother has to go to work and earn money, so he can buy you pretty little dresses." With a smile, Leon pinched his sister's small pouty face. Then, holding her and William, got off the carriage. He turned his head to glance at Happiness' apartment. As expected, the old man, who claimed to be not in good health, was glaring at him from the small garden in front of the building, holding a gardening shear over a meter long. His pair of enormous dark muscles bulging beneath his tank top were intimidating, and he was snipping shrubs as thick as a bowl with precision. "Please stop trimming. Can't I just not go over there?" Glancing at the old man's bulging muscles and then at his own, not even as thick as the man's forearm, leg, Leon, worried that he'd end up more of a bro than a brother, truly didn't dare to linger a moment longer. Struggling to haul the luggage from the carriage to the apartment entrance, he promptly made his escape. Seeing the little demon wisely refraining from approaching, the old man gave a cold snort. He casually jabbed the entire garden shear into the ground, then limped his way to the door, eyeing the new tenants of Happiness Apartment. "Thank you, John." Having visited Happiness Apartment twice in these days, Anna was already familiar with the menacing-looking administrator. After politely greeting him, she picked up as much luggage as she could manage and urged her younger siblings to do the same. Then, full of apologies, she said, "My brother is a bit busy with work, so he couldn't help us move. Could you please—" "Ah!" Before her stunned eyes, the administrator, as robust as a bear, grinned menacingly and then, as if performing a trick, tossed 6 or 7 large bags into the air before bumping them onto his shoulders. After slightly adjusting his position and stabilizing the several hundred pounds of luggage, the old man swooped in and snatched away the luggage in Anna's hand, hanging it on himself without giving her a chance to refuse, and walked off without a word. "John?" Scared, Anna quickly reacted, pulling her siblings along to follow. She wanted to help with some of the luggage, but seeing the mountain piled on the old man's back, she couldn't find a way to lend a hand, so she trailed behind, continually thanking him. Phew. Seems everything's fine now. Seeing that Anna and the others had truly been accepted by Happiness Apartment, Leon, who had been hiding at the street corner, finally let go of his worries. He then furrowed his brows and quickly headed for the Purification Bureau. Just over 600 more live fire exercises, and the shooter's badge can be advanced. But before that, I need to visit the director and use her connections to investigate Anna's situation and see what could be weighing on her mind. What? Didn't I just promise half an hour ago that I wouldn't ask about things Anna doesn't want to talk about? I did say I wouldn't ask, but I didn't say I wouldn't look into it. In the director's words, not asking is not asking, but investigating is another matter. They're entirely separate issues. Or as Senior Emma would say, never harbor any illusions. Only by having enough intelligence in advance can you ensure you're always in control. Regarding Anna's secret, if it's inconsequential, I could pretend to know nothing for a lifetime. But if it's something dangerous, if I don't investigate and resolve it early, am I supposed to wait for her to do something foolish? Armed with the steadiness learned from Senior Emma and the audacity learned from the red-haired director, Leon arrived early at the Purification Bureau and forcefully knocked on the director's office door. "Director, are you there?" However, probably because he was early and the sun hadn't fully risen, the red-haired director, either not yet awake or not at work, hadn't responded. After waiting and seeing no response, Leon knocked again, raising his voice slightly. "Director, it's Leon. Are you there?" "I'm here." Leon's raised voice seemed to have had an effect as the red-haired director finally responded. However, the voice didn't come from inside the office but rather seemed to come directly from the ceiling. "Director? Are you upstairs?" "Yes, I'm upstairs." Answering with a calm, almost indifferent tone, the red-haired director's voice was slightly muffled. "Do you need to see me? If so, come up. Go upstairs." Hearing the director's words, Leon couldn't help but be slightly startled, instinctively feeling something was amiss. Although there's no rule against going upstairs at the 6th Purification Bureau, in his observation, no one ever went upstairs. The stairway lacked even a single footprint and had a thick layer of dust, indicating no one had been there in at least half a year. Why would the director suddenly call me up today? Also, didn't the director mention that the upstairs is filled with her anomalous objects? While it sounded like she was joking at the time when I asked about the Bureau's work content, she also used a joking tone to convey it. Later, after confirming with Senior Emma, I found out that although it might take years to encounter such things, everything she told me was indeed true, so, could it be true this time too? Is it possible the director's anomalous object is the one talking to me right now? How about, I just don't go up? After suspecting that the one calling him upstairs wasn't the red-haired director but her anomalous object, Leon frowned, pondered for a moment, and then tentatively said, "By the way, Director, I brought you a bottle of good wine. Would you like to come down and try it?" "Thank you." Hearing Leon's words, the red-haired director politely expressed gratitude, then continued to invite, "I'm not convenient right now. Could you please bring it up?" Not rushing down for a drink immediately, it must be fake. Easily testing the authenticity of the director, based on his understanding of the red-haired director, Leon's vigilance instantly peaked. Although he didn't know exactly what level the red-haired director was at, he could infer from the black goat's behavior. It always spoke ill of the red-haired director with sarcasm, but it never doubted her competence. According to his calculations, at its peak, the black goat's contamination value probably reached above 56, so the director's strength must be no less, likely above 60 in terms of contamination value. As for himself, forget it, better not compare. For someone who was just a probationary worker with a contamination value of only 0.9, not even reaching the minimum average standard, if the one upstairs was really the director's anomalous object and it had lost control for some reason, the only difference would be between dying miserably and dying extremely miserably. Stay calm. The more tense the situation gets, the more you can't panic. Realizing he might be encountering an uncontrolled anomalous object event, Leon first took 2 deep breaths, then silently pulled out a bottle of wine he carried with him, activating the martyr of the wine country to keep calm. Next, he immediately turned around, retreating slowly toward the door of the Purification Bureau while calmly continuing the conversation. "Since you're not convenient, I won't bother going up. I'll leave the wine for you. It's okay." Hearing Leon's reply, the red-haired director laughed, her voice turning increasingly eerie. "Come up, what I'm busy with relates to you, so you won't be disrupting anything. As for the wine, whether to drink it or not doesn't really matter. I'm fine. You go ahead and carry on with your work." "Busy with what? Didn't I tell you to come up?" "Aha. All right, I'm coming up." Hearing the words, "whether to drink the wine or not doesn't matter," Leon immediately felt the hairs on his body stand on end. He continued to conversate to stabilize the uncontrolled anomalous object upstairs, while activating Parkour Newbie, sprinting toward the Purification Bureau's door with the fastest speed of his life. Bang! Leon! Just when Leon lowered his shoulder and crashed open the heavy door of the Purification Bureau, starting to dash for his life, the window on the 2nd floor of the Purification Bureau was suddenly pushed open, and the red-haired director, with eyebrows raised in anger, appeared at the window, clawing forcefully at his fleeing figure. "Get up here! So this is the newcomer you told me about, the one with great potential." After scrutinizing Leon in front of her, the silver-haired old lady smiled slightly and unexpectedly extended her hand to him. "I'm the one crafting the anomalous object for you this time. According to the Bureau's rules, I must keep my true name hidden to avoid curses from evil gods or other entities, so I can't tell you my name. You can call me Taurus." "Taurus? Taurus Director? So it's not an uncontrollable anomalous object, just the director having a meeting on the 2nd floor?" Looking at the kindly old lady in front of him, then at the red-haired director beside him with a face full of black lines, Leon, somewhat bewildered, instinctively stretched out his hand, shaking the old lady's hand. "Hello, I'm Leon." "Aha, I know, Leon Value, right?" After laughing and withdrawing her hand, the old lady examined the very young-looking Leon, with an expression full of appreciation. "I am personally very interested in the standard you proposed, so could you explain to me, how is the Leon Value measured?" What you mentioned isn't actually called Leon Value. Carrying the badge system, Leon sincerely hoped his name wouldn't attract unnecessary attention, so he quickly corrected, attempting to revert the name to contamination value. However, just as Leon started speaking, the back of his head was roughly smacked by the red-haired director, and he heard her harsh reminder in his ear. "Director! Ha! He deserved to be called stupid." After exchanging just a few words and then running off, completely dismantling her arrangements, the red-haired director couldn't resist giving Leon another glare, darkening her face as she reminded once more, This is one of the 12 directors of the Bureau. So you should address her as Director Your Excellency. Haha. It's merely a form of address. No need to be too particular. Waving her hand to signal not to stand on ceremony, the silver-haired old lady looked at the red-haired director, who was glaring angrily, and, teasingly, said with a smile, "Olivia, didn't you just tell me you've abstained from drinking for a long time? How come as soon as this little fellow heard you wouldn't drink, he got scared and ran off?" "Well, although I've quit drinking, the impression is quite profound, so it takes some time to change. Haha. Please excuse it. Ha ha ha. Let's talk business first." Thick-skinnedly fabricating a lie, barely covering things up, the red-haired director silently marked a black record against Leon in her heart, then seriously began to sing his praises. "Director Your Excellency Taurus, Leon is not only talented in anomalous object research but also adept at handling abnormal situations. You know about the Holy Spirit of the Scales Gold sect, so I won't elaborate, but on his first day at work, Leon took down an uncontrollable infector. Later, he sharply identified the whereabouts of another anomalous object from some slight clues. Just now, too, with someone less cautious, they would likely have followed my request to come upstairs, but he immediately sensed the anomaly and made the correct judgment, choosing to stabilize me while quickly retreating. These nuanced details and his past experience in handling the Holy Spirit independently should be enough to show you his potential." "Aha! That's quite impressive." After attentively listening to what the red-haired director had to say, the silver-haired old lady nodded approvingly. "As long as this child remains steadfast and takes things slowly, he might become a trump card like Emma. Keep it up, little guy. Don't let Olivia's goodwill go to waste." Smiling benevolently at Leon, the silver-haired old lady gently snapped her fingers, and Leon felt something hard in the palm of his hand, as if being pried open by something. When he looked down to take a glance, he was surprised to find a necklace with a golden toad pendant appeared in his hand. Name: Holy Spirit Pendant. Sacred. Interference. Whisper. Appearance: a necklace with a golden toad pendant. If you look down and gaze into the toad's eyes, you'll find it staring at you with immense resentment. Ability: sacred belief. Will interference with reality. Psychological impact. Cost: certain currencies are required for use. The type of currency isn't limited to money. If the payment is sufficient, the effects will be enhanced. File: materials sourced from the Holy Spirit of the Scales Gold sect, wealth-exchanging toad. After being destroyed by probationary worker Leon Lane from the 6th Division, the remaining remnants were crafted into this anomalous object by the Taurus director of the Purification Bureau. Evaluation: the original authority of the wealth-exchanging toad, which was supposed to dissipate, has been partially retained through the superb and cruel craftsmanship of the creator. The requirement for massive physical and mental effort is no longer needed, and it instead can be activated by paying a corresponding price. Please note, in many cases cost does not imply burden, but rather a mutually beneficial equivalent exchange. Contamination value: 48.0.9. The contamination value was actually 48 points. After reading the intelligence provided by materialism, Leon couldn't help but be slightly taken aback. He cast a probing glance at the red-haired director. Wasn't it said earlier that even if you chose the first option, the contamination value could only be 45 points, and the third option had a maximum of 42? Why was it so much higher now? Why are you looking at me? Hurry up and thank the person. Receiving Leon's gaze, the red-haired director couldn't resist glaring at him once more. She then placed her hand behind her back and secretly beckoned Leon with a finger by his neck. "Ah?" With his neck slightly lowered by his hair, Leon immediately understood the red-haired director's prompt. He quickly bowed along with the gesture and sincerely expressed his gratitude, saying, "Thank you, Your Excellency Director, for your teachings. I will certainly not let the director's expectations down. Nor will I disappoint this anomalous object personally crafted by you. Why make it so formal again?" Sigh. Easily seeing through the red-haired director's little ruse, the silver-haired old lady couldn't help but glare at her. Then, with some helplessness, she chuckled. Honestly, if I had known it would become like this, I would have applied for identity confidentiality. It's so troublesome everywhere I go, with all the bowing and greetings. The bowing and greetings are done voluntarily by everyone. They are expressions of heartfelt respect for you. Upon hearing the silver-haired old lady's words, the usually lax red-haired director surprisingly straightened her posture this time and seriously stated, "Your Excellency Taurus, regardless of past achievements or future choices, this respect is what you deserve. Perhaps, but it's indeed troublesome." After responding listlessly, the silver-haired old lady stood up from the sofa and proceeded to bid farewell. "So, that's all for today, Ollie. I came here to deliver something and to check on the status of your 6th bureau. Since everything is normal, I won't disturb you further." "You are too kind." The red-haired director nodded and bowed respectfully, then discreetly tugged at Leon, pulling him to take a step back together. Meanwhile, the Taurus director, who looked no different from an ordinary elderly woman, hunched her back and walked towards a window on the 2nd floor. She unexpectedly vanished without a trace, as if stepping into another world. "No wonder I didn't see footprints. You all don't take the stairs." A hint of realization flashed in his eyes, seeing the departure of the seemingly high-ranking director, Leon, who had been holding a bellyful of questions, couldn't help but finally ask, "Just now, that person?" "That person is one of the 12 directors, the Taurus director of this generation, and also the Bureau's most skilled master in crafting anomalous objects." After briefly explaining the old lady's identity, the red-haired director spoke with a bit of emotion. "I originally thought having a master craftsperson oversee the forging would be great, but I didn't expect His Excellency Taurus to have time, not only taking over the forging work but also personally delivering it after completion. You're really quite lucky." So, was it because this master crafted it that the contamination value was so much higher than expected? Nodding with a face of understanding, Leon sneaked a glance at her expression, then continued to ask, "Director, are the 12 directors very powerful? How do they compare to you?" "You misunderstand." After casting a glance at Leon, the red-haired director shook her head, saying, "The reason I asked you to show her respect is not because of how strong she is, nor because of her high status, but due to genuine admiration. Within at most a year, His Excellency Taurus will voluntarily give up her body to become a part of the Watcher's Palace." The Watcher's Palace? It's an anomalous object crafted by the Purification Bureau, suspended outside our world. As for its specific function, it exists, as its name suggests, as the vigilance for all humanity, serving as the strongest and last shield guarding this world. After briefly explaining the function of the Watcher's Palace, the red-haired director spoke with complicated emotions. Only those who truly love humanity from the bottom of their hearts can be chosen by the Watcher's Palace. Upon accepting the selection, one must give up their body and most emotions, leaving only the purest will to watch over humanity, and be guided into the Watcher's Palace. His Excellency Taurus has already accepted the selection. Within a year, she will head to the Watcher's Palace beyond the world to monitor those colossal disasters that threaten humanity, sitting in the silent void in vigil, until even her last lingering will is completely worn away by the relentless passage of time. Is this vigilance? Is it not essentially a form of life sentence? After listening to the red-haired director's explanation, Leon merely imagined what she had described in his mind and felt a suffocating weight in his chest. To leave behind a colorful world and a loving family, to sit alone in the desolate void for an indefinite time until even one's will is entirely consumed by solitude. This was an extremely cruel punishment for any sentient being. Does it have to be so painful? Thinking about the silver-haired old lady's gentle and kind face, Leon couldn't bear the thought of what she was about to endure. He couldn't help but ask, "This anomalous object was created by the Bureau, right? Can't it be slightly modified to have people take turns sitting in the Watcher's Palace? At least to switch shifts?" "No, it cannot," the red-haired director sighed, saying, "Only extremes are remembered, only obsession dares to forge ahead, and only madness can comprehend greatness, is a widely circulated saying in the Bureau. My understanding of it is that, whether it's deep love or reverence or hatred or reluctance, only these most extreme and pure emotions can truly affect the world, giving birth to corresponding anomalous existences. Pausing at this point, the red-haired director lifted her head to look at the sky outside the window, speaking with a wistful tone. The existence of the Watcher's Palace follows these rules. Its calling involves no coercion, and there's even a full decade of preparation time before ascending the palace, during which you can regret at any time, and no one will remember you were ever chosen. Most people in the Bureau believe this decade is merely a cooling-off period for the chosen, but I think that whether it's the extreme pain of eternal vigil that follows or the decade of weighing and consideration, it's all part of the Watcher's Palace's process of gathering power, a selection and purification of the will to watch over. Only a pure will that, knowing the hopeless future it faces and can safely retreat at any time, still chooses to forge all the way forward, can give birth to that monumental power across past and future, enough to protect all humanity. So that's how it is. Finally understanding why the usually unconstrained director was behaving so composed today, Leon unconsciously took a deep breath, his eyes revealing a deep reverence. Even if not mentioning the fact that she helped craft the anomalous object for him, as one of those blessed by the Watcher's Palace, that silver-haired old lady deserved his respect. Watcher's Palace. I never thought the Purification Bureau held something that could be considered so grand. Z. By carefully listening to the relevant narrative, you have gained substantial intelligence about the Watcher's Palace. The heterochromatic badge, Materialist Soul, Crimson, has been activated. Due to learning about the existence of the Watcher's Palace, understanding its source of power, and knowing some of its operational rules, your resistance to this anomalous object has significantly increased, now capable of shielding against general levels of influence. What the heck? Listening to the prompt in his ear and seeing the red badge suddenly flashing on the panel, Leon couldn't help but be slightly stunned. According to the red-haired director, the role of the Watcher's Palace was to monitor and control potential world-ending crises and notify the Purification Bureau in advance. Now that he used the resistance provided by materialism to block part of its monitoring, didn't that mean he had successfully bypassed the Purification Bureau's strongest defense and achieved the prerequisite for world destruction? Kiss. This feeling was indeed a bit weird. Leon. After waiting for a long time without hearing him speak, the red-haired director couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, then reached out to pat Leon's arm, extending her hand with an expectant look on her face. Weren't you saying you brought me a good bottle of wine? Where's the wine? So, the thing about quitting drinking was just nonsense, wasn't it? Hearing the red-haired director's inquiry, Leon's attention was pulled back from the Watcher's Palace, and he retorted somewhat speechlessly. When His Excellency Taurus hadn't left earlier, weren't you saying you quit drinking? Hasn't it been less than 5 minutes since then? In front of Taurus, His Excellency, I am the director of the Virgin Sanitation Bureau, but in front of you, I am a drinking buddy with whom you've had a hearty session. These are two different matters. After finishing her classic catchphrase, the red-haired director extended her hand forward again. Her 5 slender fingers deftly twirled up and down, and she urged with a mischievous smile, "Quick, quick! I can smell the wine on you, you must have brought some up here. Hurry and let me have a taste." You're really beyond saving. Seeing the face full of impatience, looking ready to pounce over to do a body search, Leon had no choice but to reach into his coat and take out the little bottle prepared for the martyr of the wine country, handing it over. Just that little bit. Taking the small bottle disappointedly, the red-haired director unscrewed it and drank up the slightly warm alcohol in a single gulp. Smacking her lips for more, she then looked over with hopeful eyes again. Is there more? Yes. Although the red-haired director could be tricky at times, she had always taken good care of Leon, and since he was planning to ask her for help, he wouldn't be stingy with benefits. Gritting his teeth and stamping his feet, he made a ruthless promise. After work today, I can invite you for another drink. Stop right there. Hearing Leon's words, The red-haired director's expression suddenly changed. She instinctively touched her wallet, looking at him with full caution. What exactly do you want? Huh? Stunned by her odd reaction, Leon repeated, hesitating a bit. Did you hear me wrong? I just said, after work today, I can invite you for more drinks. I'm not going. Recalling Leon's terribly lousy drinking behavior, the red-haired director, equipped with past lessons, moved her throat up and down with difficulty and firmly refused. If you have something to say, just say it directly. If it can be done, I will generally agree, but if I take a benefit from you before handling it, then the nature of the matter changes. Oh wow. You really are such a principled person. Then who was the one who taught me how to scam the field expenses on my second day at work? Although Leon very much wanted to ask the red-haired director if she'd taken the wrong medication today, with rent due this week and tuition for his younger siblings, saving some wine money for household expenses was naturally welcome. Thus, after organizing his words a bit, he directly shared his troubles. Here's the thing, last night, after briefly talking about Anna's situation, Leon scratched the back of his head awkwardly and made his request. My sister has a stubborn personality, and I'm a bit worried she might become fixated. So I wanted to go to the police department's file bureau to look at our family file. If possible, it would be best to investigate that photo and the photography studio it came from to see if I can find out what exactly she's worried about. That's simple. Bringing Leon downstairs and back to her office, the red-haired director rummaged through her cabinet filled with empty wine bottles, pulled out a crumpled notebook, scribbled something in it, and then handed it over. This is a clearance slip book the police department gave me back in the day. With this, you can go to the archive office of the headquarters building, and you should be able to freely access files at the administrative level and below. Thank you, Director. After expressing his heartfelt gratitude, Leon was ready to leave with the clearance slip when the red-haired director called him back. Wait a moment. Looking at the files a few minutes later won't make a difference. Pointing to Leon's right hand gripping the necklace, the red-haired director adjusted with a playful grin. Little lion, you've just acquired an anomalous object with a Leon value almost reaching 50. The main anomalous objects of many small bureau directors might only be around your level. Don't you want to test how strong it is? Trying was naturally desired, but here, seeing the office full of empty wine bottles and places where the wall plaster had started to peel, Leon thought the venue might not be quite suitable, but with the red-haired director backing him up, he figured he needn't worry about damaging public property. Thus he nodded. Of course I do. How should I test it? Very simple. Tearing off a red hair and controlling it to float over the table, the red-haired director rested her chin on her hand, eyes full of interest. Taurus, His Excellency briefly told me about the rules for that thing, and all you need to do is use, about enough energy for a light jog over a kilometer as currency to purchase a single mental slash. For the slash target, just aim at the hair on the table for now. Once I've felt the power of the slash, I should be able to directly tell you its approximate strength. Okay. Nodding in agreement and indicating that he remembered the test rules, Leon took a deep breath, then unclasped the golden-toed pendant, hanging it around his neck. ZZZ. Acquired and equipped the anomalous object, Holy Spirit Pendant, successfully activating the bronze badge, Devout Believer. Devout Believer, bronze after personally witnessing the arrival of the Holy Spirit and having a friendly conversation with it. Your unique beliefs and devout faith received heartfelt recognition from the Holy Spirit. Equipped effect, improves affinity with anomalous objects marked as divine. Slightly reduces the usage cost while significantly enhancing effect. Advancement route, equip and use the Holy Spirit Pendant, and after exterminating 10 heretics of the non-balanced gold sex followers, this badge will automatically advance to the Silver Badge Practitioner. Current progress 0/10. Hidden traits, no need to equip as a devout follower. Your soul is steadfast and pure, easily garnering favor from certain orderly existences. Your contamination value has increased. Current contamination value 1.1. Only 1.1. After looking at the newly acquired anomalous object, Leon couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment at the still pitifully low contamination value, giving up on the fantasy of his contamination value skyrocketing by 48 points and instantly soaring to great heights. Previously, when he acquired the witch's broom, his contamination value could directly increase from 0.4 to 0.9, mostly because the contamination values of the goat head and the witch's broom were both very low, and combined, they didn't reach his limit. However, the Holy Spirit pendant this time had an upper limit as high as 48 points, but since he had been in contact with the anomalous object for less than a month, the degree of corrosion was still very shallow. 1.1 seemed to be his current limit. "Director, I'm here." After politely alerting the red-haired director, Leon took the initiative to activate the Holy Spirit pendant, converting a small portion of his stamina into currency and directly feeding the golden toad on his chest. Gulu! Accompanied by a low croak that only Leon could hear, a small copper will quietly appeared in the open mouth of the golden toad. After it tilted its head back to swallow the copper wheel, an invisible slash emitting a faint white light suddenly appeared, accurately hitting the red hair suspended in the air, and then nothing. Was that it? Seeing that after taking a slash, the red hair still gently floated above the desk, without even a slight bend. Even though he was already mentally prepared, Leon couldn't help but feel slightly disheartened. As his contamination value gradually increased, his endurance had strengthened quite a bit, but still did not exceed the range of an ordinary person, estimating that running 7 or 8 kilometers was his limit. So even though the slash just now seemed unremarkable, it already consumed 1/8 of his stamina. Considering he needed to keep some stamina in reserve, he couldn't spend it all at once. This attack could probably only be performed 4 to 5 times. Yet the attack, which cost him so much, couldn't even cut a single strand of the red-haired director's hair. This was really better to practice sniping. It's all right, the power is quite good already. Seeing the disappointment in Leon's eyes, the red-haired director retracted his hair and comforted with a smiling face. The force of that last strike was enough to pierce a thin steel plate, and the move was very stealthy with no obvious preparatory actions, and the attack positioning was very precise. By the way, how far can you release that kind of attack? This? I'm not quite sure myself. Then let's try another method. Pointing out the window, the red-haired director said, "Extend your will and pick a leaf from the farthest place you can reach." "I'll give it a try." Following the red-haired director's instruction, Leon paid a bit of stamina again to the toad on his chest. After a while, a slightly withered golden leaf drifted in through the window on an invisible breeze and landed on the desk. The maximum distance is about 100 meters. Huh? Then the maximum damage range should be just over 50 meters. Looking at the leaf on the desk, the red-haired director nodded with satisfaction and concluded, "The destructive power is slightly lacking, just above that of a police firearm, yet below that of a large-caliber nail gun. Its accuracy is extremely high, able to accurately cut a petiole from 100 meters away. No preparation is needed within a 50-meter range to inflict damage directly. Very strong." Giving Leon a thumbs up, the red-haired director evaluated with a smiling face. "As long as you're in a slightly complex terrain with this anomalous object, you could suppress an entire squad of fully armed, skilled soldiers alone and easily annihilate them. Add in the soul vision from the goat, and even if you're cornered in the streets, they'd need 5 elite squads of 10 people each, prepared for over half the casualties. And this is considering they know your abilities beforehand. In an ordinary encounter, as long as you're not cornered and surrounded after being located, you could probably exhaust a whole battalion by yourself." Hearing this, the effect seemed quite decent. With the complex terrain mobility ability provided by the parkour badge, he could almost move around the urban area unhindered, but if it's just like this, wouldn't using the demon opposite also do the trick? After contemplating the example given by the red-haired director, Leon couldn't help but furrow his brows and say, "The black goat can directly incite the desire to fight, which should achieve a similar effect, right? Plus, considering attacks from teammates could happen at any time, if used well, the opponent's attack could even be dismantled directly." That's right, it can be done, but it has to be one versus many. After looking into Leon's eyes, The red-haired director continued. For the tasks you can perform with your current level, the vast majority are small-scale incidents with single targets. In such cases, the goat is far less useful than this pendant. In any case, you can rest easy for now. By my standards, as long as the witch's broom returns to normal, you can be considered a qualified level 3 incident handler. Curling his fingers to retract his hair, the red-haired director couldn't help but earnestly persuade the still unenthusiastic Leon. Leon, although you didn't say it, I can roughly tell that encountering Scales Goldsek's Holy Spirit has given you a great sense of crisis, but you must understand that some things cannot be rushed. For you, who have been in contact with anomalous objects for less than a month, having this level of power is already a rare thing. The rest can come slowly. Thank you for your reminder. I'll remember. Nodding noncommittally, Leon tucked the Holy Spirit pendant back into his collar, then took the red-haired director's referral and left the office, heading towards the archives. Let it come slowly, huh? Thinking over the red-haired director's advice, Leon couldn't help but shake his head. Letting things come slowly would indeed be the best, but for someone who's joined the Purification Bureau like himself, who can say whether accidents or tomorrow will arrive first? Unlike Senior Emma, he didn't have an undying body as a safety net, so he had to become stronger as quickly as possible to ensure his own safety to the greatest extent, and to prevent Anna and the others from losing a big brother they could rely on after losing their parents. Additionally, while the contamination value can't be rushed and must be converted bit by bit over time, he still had the badge system. Shooting, parkour, drinking, performing. Although individually, the effects of these badges weren't particularly strong, those below silver didn't reach an abnormal level, but they provided a direct path for promotion, so as long as he accomplished the corresponding tasks, a big boost would follow directly. Moreover, there were badges like Friend of Demons and Zealot, which directly enhanced the effects of anomalous objects. As long as he could put in more effort, the speed of becoming stronger could definitely be greatly accelerated, so as long as he didn't die brushing, he'd brush to death. Resolving to become a super grinder, Leon grabbed a case with a sniper rifle, stuffed 2 hard loaves into his arms, and headed to the archives. He planned to first check on his own files to see what Anna was worried about, then half-heartedly deal with lunch, followed by spending the whole day at the shooting range, firing until he couldn't see the targets anymore, and then, I'm very sorry, but the files you requested have already been retrieved by someone else. After checking the file records, the custodian at the archives nodded slightly at Leon, whose eyes were filled with surprise, and explained apologetically, although your clearance is higher, these ordinary files are only stored as a single copy in the Bureau. If you wish to review them, you might have to wait until they're returned. Someone accessed my family archives ahead of schedule? Upon hearing the archive keeper's words, Leon couldn't help but frown. Can you tell me who accessed the archives? I'm sorry, but according to our Bureau's policy, this is strictly confidential. Even though the archive keeper was polite but equally firm in their refusal, Leon nodded, didn't press further, and instead put away the authorization slip, left the Archives Bureau, and headed towards the Secret Investigation Bureau building with a somber expression. All 6 members of my family are just ordinary people. My parents died in battle 6 years ago, and Anna isn't an adult until next year. With my 2 younger siblings being only 6 or 7, the one who accessed the archives must be targeting me. Asterisk, only someone who has interest in me and also has the ability to access the archives would do this. I don't even need to think to know who it is. Asterisk. Leon Lane, Oliver Lane, Wayne Lane, Thomas Lane. Looking at the pile of Ryan series files forming a small mountain on the desk, the female police officer, with slightly dark circles, couldn't help but sigh and feel like she truly had a grudge against this cursed surname. First, she was assigned to investigate the rebels who attempted to assassinate the princess. In the end, the abandoned firearms at the scene were found to have been produced by the Ryan family's arms factory. The caught rebels insisted that it was ordered by the Ryan family, but because of the Ryan family's lack of cooperation, the investigation was forcibly terminated. Later, she finally extracted some clues and tracked down one of the rebels, but the operation was disrupted by another Lane, who joined the rebels. Not only was she made a fool of, but it also left her feeling upset for days. What's more annoying is that to make up for her father's mistake, she was dismissed like that, yet still had to eagerly help with the investigation of his pension affair. To get back the deducted pension for the Ryan family and send that damned consolation officer from the military department in, she spent half the night sifting through files and barely caught some shut-eye before dawn. However, just after reporting the pension issue, the two new cases she was assigned today were both Lane cases. One was a commercial dispute involving the Ryan family and two other noble families against Charles Department Store, and the other was a railway project jointly undertaken by the Ryan family and the Department of Road Administration, which had inexplicably stopped for half a year after severing the roadbed, and now required verification after being reported. Seriously, I just want to know what's there to verify in such a case. Are you all blind? Can't you see if the road is broken or not? Why must we send someone down to check? Creak. Creak. Seeing the two glaring red, urgent markings on the dossier, the female police officer was immediately so angry that she started gnashing her teeth. Although our name has investigation in it, we're the Secret Investigation Bureau. Secret, you know. What's meant for us to handle are the traitors selling out the kingdom, corrupt officials misbehaving, spies infiltrating the kingdom, and the rebels trying to sabotage. Can't they handle an investigation without immediately thinking of us? To avoid taking responsibility, why must they push every trivial matter our way? If I'd known that secret police dealt with such things, I wouldn't have. Isha. Just as the female officer was being tortured by the Lane series dossiers to the point of burning with rage, ready to set everything ablaze, a similarly exhausted secret police officer called out to her, tossing over a metal badge weakly. Interrogation room 17 is empty now. Hurry if you want to use it. I'm going right now. Catching the metal badge as she stood up energetically, the female officer, ecstatic at having found an excuse, exited the large office. She then dashed down the stairs as if chased by a dog. However, just as she reached the lobby on the first floor, preparing to head to the interrogation room in the basement and engage in a mental duel with those damned rebels, someone called out to her again. Isha. Seeing the puzzled look she shot over, a middle-aged female officer, with whom she usually got along well, chuckled softly and smiled at her while gesturing with her chin. Look over there. Someone's here for you. Someone's here for me? Who could it be? Looking in the direction pointed out, Isha saw that familiar face and immediately let her expression fall. Just freed from the Ryan hell, she turned without hesitation to leave. Please don't call me. I don't know him. Oh? Is this a standoff? Watching Isha storm off without a word, and then glancing at the man nearby, who looked like he was about to pull his eyes out from waiting. The middle-aged police officer wished she could help smooth things over, but due to the Bureau's rules, she could only helplessly sigh and explain to Leon in the reception area. I'm sorry. I should let you in, but our Bureau has special regulations that generally don't allow outsiders. What are you here for? Mid-explanation, a cold voice came from behind. Surprised, the officer turned to see that Isha had returned, glaring at the man in front of her with dislike and harshly interrogating him. Didn't you call me a nut job and tell me to get lost? Preferably never to bother you until I die? What? Do you think I went too far? After nodding in thanks to the female officer who called for them and waiting for her to move away, Leon touched his backside, which had just healed from swelling this morning, and couldn't help but lower his voice, retorting with a scowl. Can you honestly say you weren't a bit crazy, screaming and firing at my rear end at the shooting range? Oh? What? Reading Leon's lips to discern the conversation, the distant middle-aged female officer was startled, nearly stumbling to the ground. What at the shooting range? Are the young people today so brazen, or am I just old and out of touch? You. Shut up. Quickly glancing around to ensure everyone was busy with their affairs and no one seemed to notice them, Isha grabbed Leon and dragged him out the door, gritting her teeth. You scoundrel rebel. Didn't we agree to forget about the shooting range incident and never see each other again in this life? What do you want? What do I want? I should ask you the same. Scowling at her, Leon extended his hand, speaking irritably. We agreed never to meet again, yet you secretly accessed my files? Hurry up. Hand over all my family's archives. Archives? So that's why you're here. Relieved at Leon's explanation, Isha smacked his open palm forcefully and then looked up with a glare. I accessed the files first, why should I give them to you? I'll return them after I'm done reading. Because they're my files. They're not your files. They're about you, files collected by the archives. Asterisk after spending half the night dealing with the Ryan family's deducted pension. Isha finally had some leverage when facing Leon and outright refused. Stubbornly, just wait. Once I've finished using them, your files will naturally be returned. Why are you looking at me like that? Asterisk. Asterisk, I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at your bureau's people. Do you guys in this line of work all have such a heavy curiosity? Asterisk. Observing the increasing number of seemingly unconcerned people in the Secret Investigation Bureau's hall, Leon silently opened the badge system and glanced at the new badge he just acquired. Scumbag. Due to the suspected act of asking a dating partner for money, you successfully activated the Black Iron level badge Scumbag. Scumbag. A male human who is not loyal to romantic relationships, establishes intimate relationships with more than one woman, or tends to pursue pleasure for personal benefit with low moral character. Wearing effect, your charm will slightly increase, but your reputation among women who want to build a family will decrease. However, your attractiveness to certain women with special preferences will significantly rise. Advancement route. Request money from intimately ambiguous female partners more than 10 times, and this badge will automatically advance to the bronze badge Soft Rice Man. Or use your outstanding charm to form intimate relationships with 10 women, skipping the bronze stage and directly advancing to the silver badge Sea King. Hidden trait. No need to wear the mental damage you intentionally cause to women will increase. Mental damage? Would mental shock triggered by an anomalous object count? If so, this badge might actually be quite useful. Asterisk, feeling rather speechless, Leon closed the badge panel. Being stared at by Secret Investigation Bureau members with their peculiar gazes made him uncomfortable, and the unexpected surprise gain from the situation left him too embarrassed to stay. Asterisk, he reluctantly argued with a female police officer for a few moments, received a promise to return the file within 3 days, and then hurriedly left under the gaze of at least 100 people. Why was that rebel acting so strangely today? Watching Leon's retreating figure, neck tucked and back hunched, somewhat disheveled, the female officer who'd gained a small victory raised an eyebrow in surprise, then returned to the Secret Investigation Bureau's lobby, full of questions. Isha. Watching her walk back briskly, seemingly in a good mood, the middle-aged female officer who had spent half the day eating melons couldn't help but approach with a worried look and quietly advised. In theory, relationships are your young folks' affairs, and I shouldn't butt in, but you really need to open your eyes and protect yourself well. Oh? Asterisk, what kind of joke was that? Though he had some justification, that bastard was still a rebel. How could I possibly have that kind of relationship with him? Asterisk. Without revealing Leon's identity as a rebel, Isha nodded and agreed perfunctorily to placate her colleague's exaggerated concern, feeling speechless, then walked downstairs to continue her work. As she entered the emptied interrogation room, having adjusted the glaring lights to a softer tone, preparing to start questioning, she heard the door creak open behind her. Isha. Squinting her eyes to confirm she hadn't mistaken the person, the male officer holding a stack of files breathed a small sigh of relief, then beckoned her to come out for a word. What's up? Following him out of the interrogation room, Isha peeked at the files in his hands and realized they were the ones she submitted that morning. They were files on war widows whose benefits were prematurely terminated, despite not meeting the deduction standards, and her brows furrowed immediately. Did the military return the files and lists? Did they refuse to reissue the pensions or refuse to deal with those negligent consolation officers? Both. They refused to reissue the pensions and aren't planning to deal with the consolation officers. The male officer said helplessly. The people from the military claimed that providing pensions until the age of 16, adulthood, already met the minimum standard. They're not babysitters and aren't obligated to take care of these people for life. With a normal salary, it's not hard to make ends meet in the capital city through honest labor. If someone can't sustain themselves, they should find other reasons. Maybe they're not working hard enough. Not working hard enough? Asterisk perhaps for others, this could stand. But wasn't it that the rebel bastard nearly worked himself to death to support his family, only to nearly end up with a broken home? And you guys had the gall to claim he wasn't working hard enough. Asterisk. Asterisk furthermore, were all the pensions of the past 6 years fully paid? Not to mention, half of the rebel bastard's family's deserved pensions were turned into property in Veteran Lane at average market price. Asterisk. Asterisk, damn it. Those rundown houses, built 70 years ago, far from the central zone, surrounded by prisons and factories, which couldn't even be sold, and you had the nerve to exchange them at average housing prices as compensation? The records even shamelessly stated, consent obtained. Asterisk. Asterisk back then, they were just a few children who lost both parents, the youngest still breastfeeding, the oldest not even 10. Even knowing accepting this deal was a loss, what option did they have besides agreeing? Asterisk. Got it, thank you. Asterisk Isha was practically fuming after hearing the man's relayed message, barely containing her anger. After thanking him, she couldn't help asking with a darkened expression. Asterisk. Can you tell me which person said those things about not working hard enough? A supervisor from the Consolation Bureau. His name was apparently Will Lane. Asterisk from now on. The two words I'll hate most in this lifetime are Lane. Asterisk. Shooting expert. With exceptional talent and immensely tough practice, you've refined an excellent shooting feel, reaching a mastery level described as expert. Wearing effect, relying on high skills you've explored yourself, and the superior feel cultivated in diligent practice, your shooting accuracy will dramatically improve when consciously aligning the gun muzzle. Advancement route. Complete 30,000 live ammunition shootings, and this badge will automatically advance to the Golden Badge, Shooting Master. Current progress 0/30,000. Hidden trait. No need to wear as a gun enthusiast. When using a familiar firearm, your shooting stability will significantly increase. Finally reached silver, Opening the badge panel, glancing at the slot where the shooting expert badge blinked with a silver glow, Leon fired 2 more shots from where he lay, then retreated from the shooting lane, feeling half excited and half frustrated. The excitement needed no explanation. Of course, it was due to the shooting badge's upgrade to silver, where its effects made a leap forward. Facing a human-shaped target 500 meters away, even after exhaustive training and adjustments, a person with a bronze-level shooter badge would be at their limit if 9 out of 10 shots hit the mark consistently. Yet, the 2 shots fired after the badge upgrade nearly halved the hit area, not only guaranteeing 100% accuracy but also permitting slight adjustments to the bullet's landing spots, choosing the upper or lower sections of the target. This was despite a nail gun side roll on a 500-meter target. For a 300-meter target, it virtually ensured pinpoint accuracy, with maximum deviation unlikely to exceed 2 centimeters, given stable wind and light conditions. As to why such significant improvement left him frustrated, it was obviously because the subsequent advancement had become more challenging. A full 30,000 rounds. Gazing at the intimidating number of 4 big fat zeros in the advancement route, Leon heaved a long sigh. Based on his average pace, even if he didn't work or go home, staying at the range all day, it'd take over a month to fire all 30,000 rounds. Following the normal routine of shooting an hour or 2 after work, continuing to advance would probably require firing for 180 days, taking more than half a year in total. Looks like upgrading the shooting badge wouldn't happen anytime soon. Well, but these practice sessions had to continue. Glancing at the sky, seeing the sun hadn't completely set, Leon picked up the nail gun once more, earning despairing looks from the two administrators as he returned to the shooting position. Compared to the ones necessitating sinful souls like the Friend of Demons, and those needing personally slain heretics such as the Zealous Believer, the shooting badge's upgrading criteria were overly simple. And after just half a year of training, to possess shooting master levels, he was already exceedingly lucky. What else was there to complain about? Shooting at the range until nightfall, Leon first returned the sniper rifle to the Purification Bureau, then walked toward Happiness Apartment. Because of the big fellow who claimed bad health, he intended to sleep at the Purification Bureau headquarters originally, even letting Anna and the others know in advance his busy work meant a few days of absence. But since he obtained the Zealous Believer corresponding to Friend of Demons, why not try returning home? What if the hidden traits of both badges offset each other, and the janitor at Happiness Apartment suddenly had a change of heart? Hoping he might manage to sneak in, Leon stood for the second time in front of Happiness Apartment's building. After glancing up at the location of his apartment on the 6th floor, he took a deep breath, clutched the Holy Spirit pendant on his chest, and tiptoed into the building's foyer. Somehow, whether folks had already gone to sleep or the badge's effect had counteracted, Leon managed to walk through the first-floor foyer and into the stairwell without encountering the burly man with the scissors, or even the lady administrator. So, can I go home now? Overjoyed, Leon quickened his pace, sprinting up the stairs. But just as he raised his hand to knock, the door swung open, as it had countless times over the past 3 years, before he could touch it. Bro! Seeing Leon's face full of smiles, beaming with happiness, Anna couldn't help but curiously ask, "Didn't you say you'd be too busy these days and wouldn't come home to sleep?" "Yeah, originally I was very busy, but suddenly not so much so I could come back. By the way, I haven't had dinner. Is there, Spotting the burly old man sitting by the dining table, glaring menacingly at him, Leon's smile froze on his face. "No way. How did you set up an ambush like this?" "Oh, bro. This morning you didn't have time to help us move our luggage. Uncle John helped us carry everything upstairs, and while I was busy tidying up the house this afternoon, William and Melanie were well taken care of by him. He even helped put them to sleep just a while ago." Seeing Leon staring intently at the burly old man, Anna smiled and explained proactively, "Uncle John has helped our family so much, and he refused to take the gratuity I offered. I just didn't know how to thank him, so I decided to invite him for a dinner at our place as thanks." "So, turns out you willingly let the stranger in?" Leon flapped his mouth wordlessly, slowly relaxing his stiff facial muscles, and forced out a smile. "Well, he indeed deserves a good thank you. How was Mr. John's meal?" "Good." The burly old man answered Leon's question with a few words, forcing a rigid smile that matched Leon's. He then suddenly stood up and reached towards a basket with a large pair of scissors. "Oh crap." As Leon's expression changed and he prepared to bolt for the door, a sudden dry cough erupted from behind him. Ahem. Was this an attack from both sides? Turning his head to see the familiar face of the lady administrator, Leon's heart skipped a beat. He grabbed the Holy Spirit pendant on his chest, ready for any protective action. However, the lady, stealthily approaching him, didn't attack. Instead, she cheerfully lifted a large tray, offering freshly baked crispy beef bread rolls. "Young man hungry, aren't you? Want to try one?" I'm fine. I'm not that hungry." "Well, if you're not, make way, let me get through first. Hehe. This is quite hot." "Ah, sure." Feeling bewildered, Leon stepped aside, allowing the administrator lady to pass with her tray. He sniffed the aroma of the dish lingering around and glanced at the burly old man playing with the large scissors, feeling more confused about whether he could enter or not. Was I supposed to come in or not? Why did both of you have different attitudes? "Bro." Watching Leon dawdle at the door for ages without entering, Anna blinked in surprise before pulling him inside. "Didn't you say you hadn't eaten dinner? Come in and eat." Okay." circling half the table to find a spot farthest from the burly old man. Leon picked up a knife and fork, feeling uncomfortable under the intense stare. He cut a slice of the meat roll and ate it tastelessly. After observing the situation, realizing why Leon was acting awkwardly, Anna lightly pinched his thigh and chided, "Didn't you tell me before that Uncle John might look fierce but is actually a warm-hearted good guy? Why are you acting so uptight now?" "Bro, this isn't being uptight. It's worrying that this good guy might think I'm not a good person and decide to snip me with those scissors. Haha, men are like that." Seeing Leon's complex expression, the white-haired, curly-headed lady administrator chuckled before kindly chiming in, "My old man is the same. He actually praised your brother to me, saying that although he works in the Purification Bureau, he's a nice guy hoping to get along well and become close. Put it down. Why are you still fiddling with those blasted scissors?" With a swift tap on the burly man's hand, the administrator lady snatched away the gleaming large scissors, pushed the basket away with difficulty, and barked at her husband, who was helplessly watching her after losing his scissors. "Go wash your hands. Your scissors are dirty with dust. How can you eat after touching them?" "Oh!" After being yelled at, the burly man's bear-like back hunched down as he reluctantly left his seat, glancing back every few steps on his way to the bathroom. Few. It seems the lady has more authority at home than the man, so I guess I'm safe now. Watching the poor old man go to wash his hands, Leon breathed a sigh of relief, feeling more at ease as he gave the lady a genuine thumbs up. "Master at keeping a husband in check, you are the one." "Oh no, it's not like you think. It's because the old man lets me." Embarrassedly waving off Leon's admiration, the lady chuckled. "So, tell me about yourself. Anna said you work at the Purification Bureau. What do you all do there every day?" "Well, mostly assisting and handling some troublesome situations and stuff." Glancing at Anna, who was equally curious, Leon hesitated before awkwardly admitting, "As for specific work details, it's not quite suitable to discuss over a meal. How about we talk about your family's matters?" "Mr. John, Seeing Leon suddenly stop speaking, the lady administrator instinctively followed his gaze towards the bathroom. The lady found herself deeply exasperated when she saw her husband washing his left hand while making scissor motions with his right hand, gesturing towards Leon through the glass, mouthing, "Snip, snip, wash your hands properly." With another sharp yell, the lady turned back to an apologetically nodding Leon. "Unlike me, responsible for preventing danger, my old man is quite stubborn, hating to see." "Well, you understand what I mean, right?" "Aha, I get it." Hearing the lady's words, Leon nodded with sudden realization, understanding the couple's dynamics. Happiness Apartment had two abilities, a Level 1 accident avoidance and a Level 2 malice vanquisher. It appeared the couple each took charge of one, with the burly old man in charge of vanquisher, which was why he constantly kept an eye on Leon. "Haha, it's good you understand." After subtly explaining her home situation, the lady shot a glance at Anna, who was utterly confused, and continued cheerfully, "Young man, the Purification Bureau is a good place. Although I don't know much about your bureau, I've met folks from there before. Or let's say, part of why my old man and I are where we are today is thanks to your Purification Bureau's help." "Thank you for the help from the Purification Bureau?" Does that mean someone from the Bureau had actually already contacted Happiness Apartment? But according to the records from the Purification Bureau, I am the first discoverer of this apartment, so did that person find it but not report it? Or is it? After pondering the words of the manager lady, Leon cautiously ventured, "Excuse me, when you mentioned help, are you referring to something ordinary? Or do you mean the fundamental kind of help that transformed you both into what you are now?" "Of course, it's the fundamental kind." "The fundamental kind. Does that mean this Happiness Apartment was actually created by someone in the Purification Bureau? But how is that possible?" Recalling the common knowledge the red-haired director and senior Emma had told him, Leon couldn't help but furrow his brows instinctively. For an anomalous object, creation and forging were two entirely different concepts. The anomalies produced by the Purification Bureau were mostly like those of the tourist director, where the remains retrieved after completing purification tasks were forged, retaining core abilities to create, essentially modifying the existing uncontrollable anomalies into more fundamentally controllable ones. Asterisk, however, if the manager lady's statement and his understanding weren't wrong, then this happiness apartment, this spirit lodge didn't follow this common sense. It was made from nothing. Asterisk. Asterisk, such an important matter must be clarified. But, asterisk, Anna, you two talk first. Receiving the helpless glance from Leon, the frail girl, although very curious, smiled understandingly, stood up, and walked toward the inner room. It's been really cold lately. I'll go check if Melanie and the others have kicked off their blankets. Don't want them catching a cold. Thank you. Not wanting his family to get too deeply involved with the world below the surface. Once Anna entered the inner room and closed the door, Leon finally relaxed, opening his mouth earnestly to ask, if possible, could you tell me how that person helped you back then? What is it? Seeing Leon's suddenly serious demeanor, the manager lady seemed to perceive something was amiss as well, her expression hesitant. Young man, tell me the truth. Does your bureau have some regulations prohibiting turning us into what we are now? It's not so much prohibited as simply impossible to achieve. Trying to use language the other person could understand, Leon briefly described the difficulty of doing so, and, seeing the slightly worried look on the manager lady's face, he comforted. Rest assured, you don't have to worry about that person facing punishment. This sort of ability to create anomalies is something I've never heard of before, and there are no regulations in the Bureau regarding it. Besides, you've been anomalies for almost 100 years, and although we in the Purification Bureau generally have bodies much stronger than ordinary people, most people's lifespans are similar to average individuals. That person is likely long gone by now. Moreover, since this involves creating anomalies, it's really very, very important. If possible, I hope you can explain it in as much detail as you can. Oh, I see. Hearing that it wouldn't cause any trouble for their benefactor, the manager lady visibly relaxed, and after some contemplation, began with some hesitation. It's not that there's nothing to tell. It's just that we don't know all that much. The predecessor of this apartment was a charitable asylum that my husband and I converted using our property. You've probably discovered that already. Yes. After Leon nodded, the manager lady touched her white curls with a calm expression and continued to recall. My hair was not originally white. It turned white little by little after I got very sick at the time. That illness brought constant pain, and I had to rely on excessive sleeping pills and painkillers to get through it. I could only remain awake for 3 to 4 hours a day. But even during those 3 hours, I kept vomiting and having diarrhea from the medicine reactions. Sigh. Although I was reluctant to leave my husband, after years of torment, I really didn't want to live anymore. I was preparing to apply to have the asylum converted into a municipal facility, and then stop the medication and die swiftly. After narrating the origin of her hair in a flat tone, the manager lady's gaze became gradually more fierce, her voice cold and somber as she continued. I submitted more than 30 applications, and my husband, dragging his lame leg, went to the municipal offices 200 to 300 times. But the answer was always just to wait. By then, I knew the municipality probably didn't want to take it over, and once the 2 of us old folks died, the fate of those we sheltered in the asylum would definitely not be good. The manager lady's face was full of indignation as she said, the asylum's property was under my name, and my husband, due to some past matters, had no inheritance rights, so I really couldn't afford to die. We had to hold on, trying our best to find other ways out for those in the asylum. In the end, although we managed to send some people away, most in the asylum lacked the ability to work and still had nowhere else to go, and my health was declining. My husband told me that my heart stopped 3 times in the last month, and the number of times I stopped breathing was countless. Yet even at the end, I braced myself and lived, but bit by bit, I reached my limit. Heartbeat stopped. Did she actually make it through even that? Hearing the administrator's painful experiences, although it felt a bit inappropriate, Leon still recalled what he had heard from the red-haired director. Only the extreme would be remembered. Only the obsessed dared to move forward. Only madness could understand greatness. In other words, whether positive or negative, only the purest, most extreme things could leave a mark on this world. But I really didn't want to die, nor did I dare to die. Unaware of Leon's thoughts, the administrator, recalling those painful days, spoke with a somewhat grim expression. On the very last day, aside from occasionally being able to open my eyes, my heartbeat and breathing had completely stopped. I was practically a pure corpse. Even my soul briefly left my body and saw how I looked lying on the hospital bed. But in the end, I forced myself back in. There was nothing else, I just refused to accept it. I just wanted to know why. Why was it that even though a signature could save so many people, there was no one willing to stand up and approve my application? Panting a few rapid breaths, the administrator's expression softened a bit as she held the hand of the sturdy old man standing behind her, who had returned without notice. Lowering her voice, she continued, "Although my soul returned, my body had indeed completely died." The old man, who was prepared for it, called over the person responsible for organizing the remains. I don't remember too well, but that mortician was a young man. Besides his naturally downturned lips, which made him look like he was crying, he actually had a pretty ordinary appearance. However, his eyes were very bright and seemed to be able to see things others couldn't. His eyes penetrated through my body and saw my soul hovering over, and then he asked me surprisingly why I was still unwilling to leave. A young man with a naturally crying face and bright eyes? Memorizing these features, planning to ask the red-haired director about it tomorrow, Leon softly asked, "Is this the one?" "Yeah, it's him." After affirming with a complex expression, the administrator said, "He asked me if I had any wishes, but back then, my heart was full of hatred, wishing to immediately turn into a vengeful spirit and kill everyone in the municipality. So I yelled at him. Yet, after hearing the reason, that young man ignored me and instead asked my husband whether he wanted to see me again, but the cost would be his immediate death." At this point, the administrator paused, then strongly gripped the sturdy old man's hand. With eyes full of tenderness, she said, "My husband didn't agree immediately, but asked that young man with a naturally crying face, if he wanted more than just a single meeting, what would he have to give up?" Hearing his question, the young man, though a bit surprised, informed him that he could let my husband's soul accompany me forever, aside from just a single meeting. But because my soul was stronger and tougher after years of torment, if our souls were bound together, my husband would lose much of his humanity and wisdom, becoming merely an appendage to my soul. So, he agreed, didn't he? Looking at the sturdy old man grasping the administrator's hand with one hand while sneakily reaching for a large pair of scissors with the other, Leon, both touched and speechless, blinked, unsure of what to say. "Don't move." Having already caught the old man's actions, the administrator pinched the back of his hand to make him behave again, and with slight apology, she said, "Don't worry. I'm watching him. He won't cut you." "Ah, it's fine, it's fine." Leon gently touched the pendant on his chest, ensuring he could react in time, then couldn't help but ask, "What happened afterward? Were your souls bound together and placed in this apartment?" "Something like that." Hearing this, the administrator's eyes dimmed, and with a slightly downcast expression, she said, "But we didn't have our current power at the start. Back then, we couldn't even eat or drink like living humans, nor communicate with the people inside. When the charitable asylum was reclaimed by the municipality and the remaining people were forcibly evicted by the police department, we could barely manifest some semblance of form during the darkest nights." Hearing this, Leon nodded and, after contemplating for a moment, asked, "So, did you grow stronger over time?"
No.
"We became like this purely by accident." Upon hearing Leon's question, the administrator quietly turned her head away, buried her face in the sturdy old man's embrace, and with a slightly muffled voice, explained, "An orphan evicted from the charitable asylum wanted to return one night to take a look and almost fell while climbing over the wall. Worried, My husband and I briefly revealed our form to support him. That child might have sensed something, got frightened, and ran away screaming, but later he couldn't resist returning a few more times. The news that we might still be around spread among those who were driven away. Clutching her palms tightly with great regret, the administrator trembled as she said, "Then, many children, hoping to see us again, came back. We revealed ourselves a few more times. Once people began to see us, more and more returned. Even those who had found a way out and were sent away earlier came back from other districts. But, then winter came. That year's winter was particularly cold, and they were just... So in the end, fewer and fewer could come, and their physical condition worsened with each visit. Then, most of them froze to death during their first winter being evicted, right?" Listening to this point, with stinging eyes, Leon slightly tilted his head back, recalling the related files he had reviewed earlier. Those expelled from the charitable asylum numbered over 100, and since they lacked the ability to work, the vast majority did not survive that winter, freezing to death near the happiness apartment. However, when those cold, stiff bodies were found, most wore smiles on their faces. This event even made the news back then, with some clippings saved in the files. Originally, Leon thought that their smiling faces were due to hallucinations before freezing to death, but now it seemed their smiles were genuine. "My condolences!" Watching the administrator bury her face in the sturdy old man's embrace, clearly crying silently, Leon, regretting asking such questions, pressed his lips together, unsure of what was appropriate to say. Yet, at this moment, the sturdy old man, gently patting the administrator's back, spoke up. 103. After unemotionally stating the number, the sturdy old man, rarely speaking more, hoarsely and warmly added, "I received those children's final thoughts. So, the reason you both could now behave like living humans was because the 103 people driven out from the happiness apartment, who froze to death, along with others who once lived in this apartment, truly believed you two still existed?" After roughly understanding his meaning, seeing the administrator starting to sob, Leon, not knowing what to do, clenched his fists, then hastily changed the subject, asking, "What about the young man with a crying face? Did he ever return?" "He returned once." After snuggling into the sturdy old man's embrace and wiping her tears away, the administrator whispered, "About 3 years had passed after that winter when he visited us once. Seeing our situation, he seemed surprised and said our progress exceeded his expectations, asking what we had done over the years to have grown so quickly, whether we had killed those we hated. After hearing our reasons, he seemed a bit disappointed, asking why we didn't think about revenge, and then never came back." "Oh, right." Striving to remember, the administrator, uncertain, said, "We also asked him about his recent activities, whether he was still a mortician. He said he no longer dealt with burial work and had joined the Purification Bureau as a clerk, deacon, or some kind of officer. Do you have such a position in the Purification Bureau?" "You guessed it right. That young man with a crying face is indeed a director." After listening to Leon's recount of the situation, the red-haired director thought for a moment and then explained, "Because I thought it unlikely you would encounter any other directors. I hadn't mentioned this before. To become a director of the Purification Bureau, besides having sufficient strength, one must also have the qualifications to master the corresponding secret technique. The Taurus director, who brought the anomalous object last time, masterfully controlled the secret technique related to forging. They can transcend material limitations and create anomalous objects of superior quality, while the secret technique under the Aquarius director's control is said to create anomalies directly under certain conditions. So, if I'm not mistaken, the elderly couple encountered at the happiness apartment should be the current Aquarius director. Considering the age, it could even be the previous Aquarius director. It was indeed a director of the Purification Bureau. Having had his guess confirmed by the red-haired director, Leon, pondering her highly respectful attitude toward the other Taurus director, hesitated slightly before cautiously asking, "Director, may I ask, what is the general public opinion about the Aquarius director usually like?" Meeting Leon's eyes, the red-haired director immediately understood his implication and raised an eyebrow to inquire, "Do you think the Aquarius director might have ulterior motives in creating the happiness apartment? I'm somewhat suspicious, as I feel the actions of that Aquarius director do not add up." Seeing that she did not get angry at his offensive remark about a director, Leon admitted his suspicion outright, speaking solemnly to caution. "If we assumed he was a busybody who intervened out of compassion to help the elderly couple after learning of their plight, he should have assisted them in applying to the charitable asylum, shouldn't he? Such a task shouldn't be difficult for a director, right? Of course, it is also possible that he is the kind of traditionalist who takes the Purification Bureau's regulations seriously and won't intervene with ordinary people unless necessary or casually use the Bureau's privileges. But if that's the case, why did he not report what he created after making an anomaly?" After presenting his reasoning, Leon glanced at the increasingly furrowed brow of the red-haired director, paused slightly, took a deep breath, clenched his fist, and continued, "Also, I think his act of placing the elderly couple's souls into the apartment is the most suspicious part. By the time they passed, the elderly couple's hearts were likely already full of resentment. Once their souls were placed back into the apartment, they saw firsthand how people from the charitable asylum were evicted, freezing and starving to death due to municipal inaction. This resentment would likely grow exponentially. With such heavy hatred in their hearts and being given the potential to become an anomaly by the Aquarius director, once their wrath and resentment were pushed to the limit, they would likely awaken as an anomaly and seek out enemies for widespread slaughter. Moreover, the root cause of all this is not solely an individual's actions but a collective endemic apathy and negligence. Their potential for slaughter could easily spiral out of control, accumulating and absorbing even more dangerous concepts until it's completely beyond control. You are right. There is indeed such potential in this matter. But going solely by this, it's hard to prove that the Aquarius director has any problems. Nodding slightly to acknowledge Leon's judgment, the red-haired director mused with a frown. Although I find your judgment quite reasonable, beyond discussion, the fact that the elderly couple ultimately became a positive anomaly is sufficient for him to defend himself. I believe the outcome for the elderly couple might have been an accident. Recalling the words of the administrator lady, Leon said quietly, with a rather complicated expression in his eyes, that Aquarius director, when deciding to create the anomaly, likely only considered the evilness of human nature. While he noticed the couple's anger and resentment, he might not have realized that they weren't enraged because of their own experiences but out of their agony for others' sufferings. They weren't inherently extremist and mad, even if the injustice they faced spurred great hatred. The fundamental color of their souls remained kind. As for how things unfolded later on, it probably didn't follow his intended design. He likely didn't expect those decades of consistent kindness from the elderly couple to also garner gratitude and remembrance from those who received help. Those 100+ people who died smiling near Happiness Apartment, and more who felt happy thinking they are still around. All these people's memories and blessings accumulated, not only diluting the resentment within the couple's souls, but also forming a tall wall standing between them and the abyss, preventing them from being entirely consumed by hatred. That's probably it. Nodding in agreement with Leon's analysis, the red-haired director, with a hint of regret, said, "Partly the anger and hatred towards evil, and partly the compassion and blessings toward the weak. These feelings correspond one-to-one with malice vanquisher and accident avoidance. No wonder the abilities of Happiness Apartment are so markedly different and virtually unrelated. It turns out these seemingly unrelated abilities had distinct origins, which is truly..." Sigh. Shaking her head and heaving a sigh, the red-haired director slowly sat upright and, rarely with a serious face, praised, "Leon, you've done excellently. Although I always found that apartment odd, since it never hurt anyone besides you, and its strength was not particularly high, I never dug deeper. If you hadn't exercised extra caution and discovered this, what the Aquarius director did might have remained covered up." After these words of appreciation, the red-haired director's expression grew increasingly serious. Regarding the Aquarius director's issue, some waiting is required. The real identities of Aquarius, different from Taurus His Excellency, are nearly always confidential. Not even if they have been replaced or not gets revealed, making it hard for me to determine if he is the current Aquarius director or not. But I will find a way, rally fellow bureau directors to contact familiar directors for a discussion, striving to launch an immediate investigation against him. If the investigation proves he indeed has problems, there will be an account for this. Even though the red-haired director didn't articulate what that account would be, the chilling chill in her partly squinted fox-like eyes left no doubt about the answer. Who could have thought that drunkard would have such an assertive side after all? Glad you plan to do something. Half surprised and half admiring, Leon cast a glance at the red-haired director, nodded slightly, and then spoke in farewell. I only found this matter odd, so I came to report to you. If there's nothing else, then I'll... Don't leave yet. There's more. The red-haired director called out to Leon, who wanted to leave, and crooked a finger, maneuvering the red hair around Leon's neck to reach into his pocket and extract his identification. Don't worry, it's good news. Extracting a stamp from her drawer, the red-haired director, smiling with squinted eyes, remarked as she applied the stamp to Leon's document. Yesterday, after Taurus director returned, she considered you fairly outstanding in both skill and other respects. Therefore, she used her recommendation quota to move your file upwards. Congratulations. You have been officially promoted ahead of schedule. Asterisk meaning, I am no longer a probationary worker? Asterisk. Although Leon was already aware that his achievements should suffice for his promotion, hearing the news still brought him a spark of joy. Now that I've been promoted, should the black iron level probationary worker badge in turn advance to worker? ZZZ. True to expectation, after the red-haired director handed the documents back, a jarring buzz once again sounded in Leon's ear. At the referral of Olivia, the director of the Virgin Sanitation Bureau, you successfully navigated through the Taurus director's backdoor, earning her appreciation and completing your promotion 1 month earlier. Your black iron level badge, probationary worker, successfully advanced to bronze level hidden badge, connected party. Connected party. A person who obtains special treatment or priority allocation of resources through interpersonal relationships and networks. Where effect, your work efficiency will be enhanced when performing your duties, and it will be easier to receive support from the organization's internal help and various related resources. Advancement route. After independently solving more difficult tasks multiple times, or leading a team to complete more important tasks multiple times, this badge will automatically advance to the silver badge business backbone. Hidden traits. No need to wear due to your identity as a connected party. It will be easier to gain appreciation from superiors after making a contribution, and the promotion speed will be correspondingly increased. However, at the same time, due to your identity as a connected party, colleagues at the same level and lower positions may lower their evaluation of your ability. Forget it, since the promotion would be faster, and it's easier to obtain resources from the Purification Bureau, then it doesn't matter if the evaluation is lowered. The benefits are what count. After closing the badge panel with mixed feelings, Leon carefully put away his credentials, then bid farewell again, saying, "Thank you, Director. If there's nothing else, there's something else." Stopping Leon once again and seeing his somewhat speechless expression, the red-haired director mischievously curled her lips, then took a letter out of the drawer and pushed it onto the table. "Here, that which has replied to you. As long as you finish reading this letter, the witch's broom can be reactivated, and the mission to infiltrate the Ryan family can continue." Just by reading this letter? Looking at the strange red envelope tightly fastened by a wide strap on the table, Leon hesitated for a moment before reaching out to take it, instead casting a hesitant glance at the red-haired director. "Director, if I open this letter, will it turn into a gaping mouth and start roaring at me crazily?" The red-haired director looked at Leon with some surprise, then curiously asked, "How did you know? Could it be that you've encountered other witches and received a howling letter before?" "So it was true."
No.
"I've never seen a witch in my life." Picking up the envelope with extreme reluctance, Leon began to open it, making casual small talk. I just read a novel about wizards where the author wrote about wizards sending letters that can scream when they're angry. Whoa! The opened envelope suddenly turned into a big mouth, biting Leon's finger, while the strap with triangular small teeth used to tie the envelope clawed madly at the back of his hand like a cat's paw. But despite its fierce demeanor, the material was merely paper and thin ribbon. The howling letter clawed and bit at Leon's hand for half a day, ultimately leaving not a scratch. After a while, the letter seemed to tire from scratching, stopped to rest, and then the two corners of the envelope slightly perked up, forming cat ear-like shapes, and opened its mouth to howl wildly at Leon. Meow, meow, meow. Meow, 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 meow. She says you're the rudest, most impolite, and most barbaric human she's ever met. Tilting his head to listen to the meowing for a while, the red-haired director cheerfully translated. She says she'll never forget the shame you brought upon her. Not in this life, the next, or even the one after that, especially when you pointed at a basin filled with sand and asked if she could use it as a litter box. How was I supposed to know you weren't an ordinary cat? After hearing the translation from the red-haired director, Leon couldn't help but scratch the back of his head awkwardly. Asterisk in Harry Potter, cats eat cat food, snack on small fish, and use cat litter boxes. I thought being a wizard's cat would make you similar. How was I supposed to know your intelligence rivals an average human? Asterisk. After glancing at the deeply bewildered Leon, who had been meow-spoken to, the mischievous red-haired director, seeing no harm in causing more trouble, continued to merrily translate. She's asking if you realize how much damage such behavior could cause to a lady? Got it, got it. I suppose it's on par with getting a full-on slap, right? Gaping wordlessly, Leon listened to the obviously very angry meowing sounds and curiously told the red-haired director, "Director, you actually understand cat language?" The red-haired director shook her head and replied, "I don't." Hearing this, Leon raised an eyebrow. "Is it something like telepathy then?" "Nope." Flashing a mischievous grin at Leon, the red-haired director retorted, "I guessed." Asterisk guessed. I think you're just itching for some fun since you don't have any drinks to enjoy. I shouldn't have asked you. Asterisk. Without a word, Leon cast her a sidelong glare, proceeding to silently listen to the meowing letter, before pushing the office door to leave, intending to check on the witch's broom. However, just as he opened the office door, he crashed into a slender, small man. Sorry about that. Though the man wasn't tall, his build was surprisingly sturdy. After knocking Leon into a stumble, he quickly reached out to steady him, his face full of apology as he explained, "I was in a rush to report to the director and didn't pay attention." No worries, no worries. I was in a bit of a hurry to leave too." Although the collision had hurt a bit, seeing the short man's guilty expression, Leon smiled and waved it off before briskly leaving the director's office. Once Leon's footsteps faded, the previously apologetic man broke into a chuckle, looking up at the red-haired director behind the desk with curiosity. "Director, why was their cat meowing just now? Mentioning something about a basin toilet and the shame of a lady? Have you got a cat now? Forget about it. I wouldn't dare keep a cat with someone like you around." Casting a glance at the short man, the red-haired director knocked on the table with her knuckles and inquired seriously, "How's the task I assigned you? Did you find out who summoned the Holy Spirit connected with the Scales Gold sect?" "You let me handle it, so of course I found out." With a confident grin, the short man replied, "I controlled 30,000 ants, sweeping through the scent of everyone who's been to the shopping plaza over these past days. Only several dozen people showed traces of contact with the Scales Gold sect. Then I dispatched 2,000 mice and 300 crows to listen and surveil day and night around those several dozen people, pinpointed the most suspicious target, and then, all right, I know you've worked hard." Looking at the man in front of her who was indirectly trying to take credit, the red-haired director couldn't help but rub her temples, directly promising, "I'll count this as a major contribution for you." The department will reimburse all those animals' food expenses for a whole month. Plus, you'll get a bonus. Now hurry up and tell me the result. All right, I'll thank you on their behalf. With a cheeky grin, the short man continued his report. The result is, the people who summoned the Holy Spirit were the 3 companies that previously conspired to cause trouble for Charles Department Store. Oh, and by the way, my mice dug through a secret chamber in the Rose family's mansion and overheard something. Those 3 families couldn't compete with proper business methods. Summoned the Holy Spirit to disrupt things but got cleaned out by our bureau. So they've resorted to kidnapping the only daughter of Charles Department Store's owner, planning to use force to coerce him into submission. Got it. Damn these troublesome nobles. Stretching out her hand to rub her forehead with some frustration, the red-haired director said with a headache. And then? They haven't summoned anything else. Have they? Not for now. The short man shook his head and said, who knows about the future? But at least in the past few days, there's been no movement. All right, keep monitoring them. During this surveillance period, the Bureau will reimburse double the food expenses for your friends. Oh, right. At this point, the red-haired director's eyes narrowed slightly, extending her hand toward the short man. What did you just steal from Leon? Take it out and let me see.